as I start recording this video. We're the 2nd of December, and here where I find myself, it's 7:30 a.m. broadly. I don't know how long the video is gonna be, and I don't know I don't know when I'm gonna publish the video. Probably a few days, but I want to record the video for Michael and Carolyn, because I have decided to obey certain ethical principles, certain set of ethical standards. I'm not always a moral person, but one of my standards is that I wrote to myself a few months ago that I would share my knowledge with my associates. Everyone is my associate in a way, but I meant those that I call the European gods and goddesses. I explain why, but I just want to record a video that I intend. I imagine that I will speak to Michael and Carolyn, but I've understood, this will be my introduction, that I've understood broadly what the internet is all about. When people speak on the internet, when they publish their content, it becomes public, which means that potentially anyone can access whatever is being published on the internet. As of now, I know that broadly, from a technological standpoint, there are broadly 4 billion people who are potential internet users. 4 billion out of 8 billion people broadly. But eventually it can increase through economic and technological development, etc., etc. But what I've understood simply that talking to any other, be it the subscribers, the followers, or the person in case of a video respond or a message, talking to any other potentially means to talking to every other, because potentially any other and all the others can access these thoughts. I understood this in early 2019, then I forgot, but now I've been becoming clearer and clearer. That's why, for instance, I could talk directly to a 57-year-old peasant in Vietnam, or to Mr. Biden, or to anyone. That's the very structure of the internet, to talk to any specific other that we have in mind. When it becomes public, actually we can talk to anyone. But why would every others watch or be interested in whatever people say? There has to be interest. And this is what I intend to talk about. So here I consciously make a video for Michael and Carolyn, but actually I know that they will not watch the video, they will not be the first viewers. Maybe it will take a lot of time before they watch the video, maybe they won't even watch the video, or when they do, I don't know what will have happened, but that's my conscious intention. And what I ask, because I intend to publish this video on the channel Cultural Hegelianism, the followers who are in contact through I don't know, email or whatever, if you can just try to share at least the beginning of the video, the message of the beginning of the video with Carolyn and Michael, if you can do that. Because what I want to say is that, here's my little drawing. This is an illustration of the category of quantity, magnitude, intensity and extension. And I could simplify, that's my message in this video. Whatever is extended is also intense, and whatever is intense is also extended. They are conceptually united. Intensity and extension, these are thought categories of the concept of magnitude and of quantity, and translated in ordinary language, it means that, for instance, profound thoughts or elevated thoughts, they have to become extended, which means widespread, popular, mainstream, famous, etc., etc., because they are logically connected. To illustrate, for ordinary humans. The message of the Buddha, Socrates, Jesus, Muhammad, or whatever great religious leader, it has become widespread over time in the chronological perspective. It has had a great influence. It has become influential because they contain very profound, very deep thoughts. Other examples, the German politicians of the 20th century, they had a widespread influence, kind of a disruptive influence, but because, we talk about the Austrian painter, the character of Hitler was intense, whatever one might think about his political view, he had an intense character, and it has had extended consequences. Stalin, he had, or the USSR, they had a very extended influence, because communism is an intense idea in a sense that it appeals to a profound desire of the human psyche. Maybe, of course, it was not communism as envisioned by the utopian, but it has become so extended. There is a reason, the reason why anything is successful or widespread, it's not completely random. There is a reason, and the reason is the intensity. The example, what I have called cultural Hegelianism, one of the ideas that I did not myself fully understand, was simply actually clarified many years later. It's actually that I understood the unity of extension and intensity. Namely, I wanted to use pop culture, predominantly American music, modern American music, because this is the most extended form of culture in the 21st century. Eminem, Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, Taylor Swift, Billie Eilish, and all the great, the famous Kanye West, Beyoncé, Rihanna, Jay-Z, 50 Cent, Muse, Paramore, Evanescence, all the famous Marilyn Manson, Lana Del Rey, etc. All the famous, the most widespread, or Hollywood movies, or if a cultural product is widespread and very extended, very famous, there is a reason, and this reason in logical terms means it has an intensity, and intensity can mean high quality, a profound message, etc. What I understood 4 years ago is that precisely what is considered to be shallow culture, it's not shallow at all. It contains very profound thoughts, very profound truths about the nature of the human condition, the human psyche, the human experience, and the divine even. And that's the illustration of intensity and extension. Yeah, so what I want to say, my message at the beginning of this video, that's the last time that I will probably, in these circumstances, I will make a video specifically dedicated for a certain people. We live in an age of the internet where all the thoughts from all over the world are made manifest. They are being expressed on the internet, either directly by the people who have the technological means to express themselves on the internet, through a cell phone, camera, computers, a connection to the web, or if people who live really in poor conditions, they can have no access to internet, but there are anthropologists, sociologists, politicians, journalists, humanitarian workers, etc., who gather the knowledge, whether the past knowledge or the present conditions, etc., and they share this on the internet through articles, books, videos, conferences, etc., etc. So all the ideas from all over the world in the 21st century, and all the ideas from the history of mankind from the most remote era, of course it's lacking because of lack of paleontological, archaeological findings, etc. in the case of really remote knowledge, when the data are missing for historical reasons because of it's too old, or there have been destructions, or there have been falsifications, etc. But the totality of world knowledge, the totality of human knowledge, which has been gathered and which is being discovered and which is being actualized daily, is made available on the internet. So all the ideas from all over the world, in all spheres, all realms, politics, economics, sociology, anthropology, religion, art, philosophy, the sciences, metaphysics, all the ideas are made available. What is lacking is a plan. Not a plan, a map, a structure, a broad view. That's what I've been trying to provide, and I will show this in a few minutes. But what I want to say is that since all the ideas are made available, there is a free market of ID. This comes from Stephen Molyneux, that's the way he expresses it, but actually it's the idea of the libertarian. In a free market of ID, the best, in any kind of free market, if there is no hindrance to competition, the best rise to the top. They become the most extended, the most successful, etc. That intensity in terms of good quality becomes extended, becomes famous. And Michael and Carolyn, and actually anyone, but the people who share very profound ideas on the internet or in books or in publication, they will have to become extended, they will become famous. Lady Gaga, paparazzi, baby, you're a superstar, etc., etc. So what I want to say, here I am scheming a little bit. That's not a very elaborate plan, but I'm trying to share a knowledge that I know is true, but I do not understand, I cannot anticipate consciously, but simply I know that there are people who've had very profound ideas, and they will become famous simply because of the sheer depth and intelligence and brilliance of their ideas. And Michael and Carolyn, in my worldview, which at this level I know is true, you are two of the four most brilliant, most intelligent, and eventually best persons in this world. The others are Stella and Hyperborean Reflections. Who is Stella? I will put a link to the two videos that are still available of her. And Hyperborean Reflections is a YouTuber who has 1,300 subscribers. He hasn't published videos in years, but I know because he published videos years ago, I watched a few hours of his content, and I know that through his intellectual development, he had spiritual experiences. I know that he's one of the very best, actually. So I know that the four most intelligent people, Michael, Stella, Hyperborean, and Carolyn. I know why you are the best. I will explain briefly, but you will become famous eventually, like many other people. All the people that I've been promoting in my video have made lists, but there are various degrees. Namely, there are people who are relatively famous. Let's take an example. Mr. Peterson. Mr. Peterson is famous in the sense that he makes millions of views. But the world, in the world, there are 8 billion people. The ideas of Peterson, they are very profound and they are extended, but they are not as extended as they ought to be, because potentially every thinking human could be, if the technology enabled this, could be interested in the ideas of Mr. Peterson in the realm of psychology. So Mr. Peterson, that's an example of intensity and extension, which are slightly correlated, but actually it has to become even more widespread. Mr. Peterson is one of the most competent psychologists in the entire world. And the entire world, it's not just the few millions of views that he makes, predominantly with an Anglo-Saxon audience, but potentially every Chinese person who thinks, every African person who thinks, every Southern American, every thinking agent, every thinking human ought to be interested in what Mr. Peterson has to say about psychology. And here, that's an example, but he already has a certain reputation, a certain status, etc. But there are YouTubers who are anonymous, random people. They make videos in their car or in their backyard, or very poor video, or in their library. It's not my library, it's my apartment, but it's a library basically. The formal aspect is very poor, but the content, the depth of ideas is very profound. And because I will not spend the entire video showing this, but because what is intense has to become extended eventually, there will be a shift, a logical shift. It's a process, but it will occur more or less gradually, etc. But it will occur, I don't know when, in the coming times. It can be quantified in terms of, I don't know, days, weeks, months, I don't know, because things can go very fast, but eventually at some moment it will occur, and the truth will emerge on a global scale, because there's only one truth, there's only one world, there are billions of humans, but at some level there's only one consciousness, and this emerging consciousness is the mind of God, in a way. Yeah, I've understood this. It's taken me 15 minutes to express this. Yeah, basically what is intense has to become extended. That's why the truth has to emerge, but the truth is not, it's not a, I take this example, the truth is not a ready-made statue. It's a block of marble. One has to carve the block of marble with a hammer, with tools, etc. And truth has to be produced. It has to emerge out of the block of marble. That's the result of a process. And the process is what I call the phenomenology of spirit. This is what we are living in, the age of the internet, the age of revelation. That's the apocalypse. Yeah. That's what I want to share. So, at some moment, the inferior people in terms of status and prestige will become the superior in terms of renown, and the superior people, namely the current elites, intellectual, political, financial, will. Why don't you take a retirement? Go to rest. My plan at someone was go do a transcendentalist Buddhist meditation or walk in the forest. That would be my message at someone for the current elites. Go retire. Transcendentalist Buddhist meditation, go fishing, picking up mushrooms in the forest. That would be a solution for the people in charge. Do you feel in charge? Yeah. If things go more or less smoothly, maybe it will happen this way. More or less peaceful transition. Yeah. Because we live in an age where people who educate themselves on the internet, they discover that the elites, they may be competent in their very limited topic of specialization, but what you call competence, depending on the perspective. There is an ecological crisis, the financial system is a big scam, democracy is a joke, the Western world is committing suicide, people they suffer from all sorts of health problems which are caused by a decadent lifestyle, problems of sleep, addiction to medication, excess of weight, all sorts of psychological problems. So there are countless problems all over the world, plus ecological problems, etc., etc. So, yeah, depending on what is called competence, there are serious problems. Yeah, so we live in an age where the truth is a process, it's the totality, etc. There are specific truth in each topic. There is a truth in psychology, a truth in anthropology, a truth in mathematics, etc. But the truth, which is philosophical, which is another word for religious, is the totality. Now I will show my current view. So yeah, what I want to say. The first 20 minutes, Michael and Carolyn. I could speak to all the others, I could speak to Stella, but I don't know how to reach her because she doesn't produce content. So consciously, I don't know how to reach her. And I could talk to Hyperboreans or to Varg and Marie and Carol and Survive the Jive and Marcus and those that I call, or Jean Robin, but Jean Robin, he produces contents almost daily, so I can talk to him and know that there's a strong likelihood that he might read me. But the people that I call the most intelligent, the most brilliant, and footnotes to Plato, Matthew Segal, that's another example. The videos of Matthew Segal, he's a philosopher, on the child footnotes to Plato. His content is amazing. You are amazing, Matthew. You produce great content, but you make a few hundreds or a few thousands of views. But your knowledge, your worldview deserves to be widespread. When you talk about the cosmos, there are 8 billion people living in the cosmos, and they potentially, all of them ought to be interested in what you have to say. It will happen to you as well, the great reversal. You will become famous. At some moment, people, whatever they say about me, they say, at least he had good taste in intelligent, competent, brilliant, great people. At least I have good taste. I'm smart enough to understand. I'm smart enough. Yeah. So what do I want to say? yeah, so we are living, I've understood this, we are living in an age of a great reversal. If you take the philosophy of Plato, the philosophers, they will become kings. It's not a revolt of the masses, it's the revolt of the self-made aristocracy, but here it's an intellectual aristocracy. It's also partly a blood aristocracy, because I've realized this, that most of the best people in this world, they happen to be European. Not all of them, but the overwhelming majority. European means anthropological European. Most of them are American, actually, but they are Euro-American, as you call this. Yeah. So that's what I can say. It's not that it will happen all of a sudden, but it's a growing process that at some moment, people with very few subscribers, they will find themselves under the spotlight. They will become superstars because what they have to say is very interesting to everyone. This is what I call, that I also call the New World Order, or the European Pantheon. The New World Order, in my view, was kind of a political entity, but actually the purpose is to abolish politics. Simply, what people call the New World Order is simply the cosmos ordering itself, God recovering his mind and putting the proper people in the proper place, the competent, intelligent, the greatest people under the spotlight. It's a process, because this is the result of kind of a free market process, because if all the ideas are free to express themselves and to confront one another, the best will emerge. It's sometimes a very difficult, it can be a painful process, but truth is the result of a struggle against deception, against falsehood, against opposite viewpoints, and eventually it's a process of refinement and purification. That's an alchemical process, and it has to emerge. The rough diamonds have to be polished and emerge and shine. I can be a great poet. Yeah. And Michael and Carolyn, you are two of the four most brilliant, most shining people in this world, in my world. So this is my last attempt to make a video, because here I will talk about this. I just talk about briefly, and I will talk about this later. I have suffered from serious psychological and even psychiatric problems, but there are various reasons. But one of them is that on the internet, when people talk, they don't know who gets the message, when they get the message, who knows what, even if people watch the videos, what do they understand? So there are so many uncertainties that it creates a little bit of insanity and paranoia, etc. But that's why I've decided, that's what the conscious decision that I've taken over the past few weeks. I would say that I will stop trying to seduce, not to seduce, but to grasp people, to attract people's attention, because I have consistently failed, and when I have succeeded, I've screwed up for various reasons. I've decided to invert the perspective, namely to become the center of my own world. I will do this in the coming days and weeks. I will stop trying to reach people. If people are interested, they will try to reach me one way or another. But I will stop trying to attract the attention of all the others, because I have consistently failed. It's not an attempt, but that's one of my last, in these current conditions, namely where I speak about God and no one seems to care. I have a couple of persons who have been interested in my content recently. I thank them, but I will stop trying to reach people that I don't know when or if they will get whatever message I have to share. I will focus on myself and become my own center. But here is one of my last, it's not an attempt, it's to be at peace with myself. I want to share the knowledge with two of the persons who have been the most important for me over the past 6 years, and in my entire life at this point. Michael and Carolyn, you have been two of the most, dearest, most influential, most important persons for me. So yeah, I don't know if I will ever find myself in a position again where I can speak peacefully about you or with you or speak at all. So that's maybe my last, or maybe not. But yeah. So now I will briefly show my worldview. I have decided as long as I can, or I will share. Here is what I call the phenomenology of spirit, namely the phenomenal appearance of spirit. Do we see? I will just get a little bit close. These are the very simple categories. It's really simplified, but if it's too complex, people do not understand. If it's, I don't know how else to say, it's the best balance that I have found between accessibility and intellectual requirements nonetheless. So here are the categories. They are not randomly picked up. Basically, it begins with Democrats and Republicans, that to illustrate the American life, but actually it's valid for every Western country. Eventually, every democratic country, simply in other countries, it's not called Democrat and Republican, it's called Tory and Whig, Gauche et Droite, SPD, CDU, Die Linke, whatever, Podemos, I don't know how they call this, but there is a left side and a right side in every democratic society. In America, it's called Democrats and Republicans. And the first moments from males and females to anti-racism, racism, these are determination of the soul, determination of anthropology, virtue signaling, etc. It's phenomenology, namely the relationship of consciousnesses between one another. Newspeak and educational standards, this is psychology. Then control, collectivism, order, etc. It's law, legislation. Cultural Marxism, traditionalism, virtue, etc. It's morality. And all the other categories, this is what is called Sittlichkeit, namely politics, economics, sociology, geopolitics, etc. So this is how the intellectual life, the spiritual life of overwhelmingly, predominantly, the United States of America in the 21st century, and especially over the past decade. So it's the intellectual and spiritual life of the US, but actually of all other Western countries. Here, Western mean white countries, let's simplify, according to the determinacy of the Cold War, namely countries westward of Poland, northwest Europe, plus Canada, the US, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, but without Japan. So these are Western countries populated predominantly by Europeans, with the exception of South Africa. But yeah, this is how the intellectual life is structured. That's people call this, Carolyn, you call this a false dichotomy. But all dichotomies are false from a Chinese perspective of the yin and yang. They are two sides of the same coin. That's the unity of all things. That's what people call sometimes controlled opposition. I've realized that the most intelligent people on this planet, they are people who talk about two sides of the same coin, controlled opposition, etc. These are people who are reconstructing the unity. And that's an illustration, the symbol of the yin and yang. For every determination, there is the opposite. They are conceptually united, and what has been happening in the Western world with the advent of the internet has been a shift from these values which have shaped the political life of the West over the past 60 years, one might say, since the 1960s, the Cultural Revolution, etc. These values have been predominant. I simplify, of course. And there has been a shift towards the right. That's what people call populism, the rise of the far right, whatever. It's simply a restoration of balance because people have access to new knowledge, and this is what structures the life, the everyday life of the Western world, but of the world at large, because ideas, by their very nature, when they are expressed publicly, they are universal. So this is how to simplify. And here what we don't see, it's social media and central banking. And then technology, etc. Social media, central banking, technology. So yeah. So for every determination, the opposite arises, and they are conceptually united. And what people call the red pill is usually to go on the right side of this perspective. and to adopt and to become aware of these determinations. Yeah, a restoration of traditionalism or a shift towards the right, etc. It explains a lot. Yeah, it's very simplified. This is my current worldview. And the conspiracy, people who talk about the conspiracy, in conspiracy there is the sphere of spirit, and the movement of spirit is precisely what I'm showing. The conspiracy is the revolt against what is called the conspiracy, but it's by revolting against the deep state and the scheming that spirit becomes conscious of itself. That's the conspiracy. That's what I've been talking about for months and years. Yeah. But here I could simplify even more. I can complexify infinitely, but then people would not understand. But simply, a lot of young people, predominantly white people, here we have rebellious white youth plus westernized immigrants and old whites, conservatives, but predominantly young white people, they follow this path. In this path there are countless publications, books, authors, intellectuals, journalists, politicians, etc., etc. But that's just an attempt to restore the balance. Yeah. And one can only become conscious of one determination by opposing the other. Yeah. This is what I can say. So now I will just show my other documents. As long as I can, I will show these documents in all of my videos because it helps a lot. For me, it helps because it simplifies a lot. It's the map of the intellectual landscape of 21st century. The 21st century Western world, but actually the 21st century world, because there's only one world. And as long as the world has to be governed, there has to be a one world government, because there's only one world, there's only one universe, there's only one planet, there's only one God. No, there are many gods. Thank God there are many gods. If God was alone, that would be boring, I guess. Here are, do we see, the categories. I will not comment. What we don't see is substance, accident, cause and effect, etc. These are the categories, very simplified again. These are the fundamental determinations of the mind of God, but also the mind of human, but also these are the fundamental determination of reality, the building blocks of reality, etc., etc. I will not comment, but I use this as a working document, but simply, I just simplify. Here I talk to you, Michael and Carolyn. Let us take an example. I have already talked about intensity and extension, extensive und intensive Größe, but for instance, Carolyn, when you talk about it's universal, not universalist, what you call universalist is the abstract moment of universality, detached from its particularization, and what you call universal, it's a concrete universal, namely a universal which has particularized itself in intelligible language. Globalism, if it's just an abstraction, it's universalist, but real globalism is concrete globalism, namely if all the nations or all the Western nations, they revolt against this abstract universality, the globalist plan for world domination, they retreat into their particular identity, they turn towards English identity, American identity, Canadian identity, French identity, German identity, etc. But then it's not just a patriotic identity. They discover in the Red Pill Path that there is an underlying European identity, and by revolting against an abstract universality, they fill their particular identity with determination. They become aware of who they are, and if all the countries or most of the countries of the world revolt against the empty abstraction of globalism, they give a content to their particular identities, be it racial, anthropological, psychological, cultural, historical, etc. And that's how the universal becomes conscious of itself. And that's how globalism becomes real, because real globalism is a worldview in which all the nations of the world become aware of their cultural legacy, their cultural heritage, but not to oppose one another, but to celebrate their own cultural wealth, one might say. Yeah, that's an example. Another example, whole and parts. In order to understand anything, one has to see the full picture, not just parts and aspects of the picture. Measure, another illustration, Make America Great Again. When Trump says this, the people who agree with this, they mean, unconsciously they mean make America 85% white again. They will not say this publicly, but that's what they think. I know Americans, that's what you think. And that's the proper measure in their view that America, if the greatness is dated back to the 1950s, it means America was great, in their view, when it was 85% white. And in their view, it has become decadent because it has lost its anthropological measure. But it's partly true, but it's also partly false, in a sense that if America declined, there are other reasons than just these. I mean, yeah, but that's how people on the right usually they think in terms of measure, or about genetic purity. If you are 80% European or Asian or black, but if you are 80% European, you are European. Here it means white, but if you are 73, are you still European or are you mixed race, etc.? These are determination of measure. This is the kind of debate that people have in some circles. Yeah, I could explain all of this, but I will not make a lecture on logic. I've done this. I've done this so many times. I will keep doing this, but here it's not the purpose. So yeah, these are just illustration. Yeah. Also, I will make a brief comment now. As long as I publish video, I've decided I will put the link to my latest, most recent 3 or 4 or 5 latest videos, so that people can follow the latest chronological development of my thoughts, to have a sense of continuity. Yeah. Here is my view. It's not very accurate, very rigorous, but that's the current simplified view of what I call nature. Here we have mechanics with the light. So it begins with geometry to cosmology, from optics to magnetism, from geology to medicine. It's the view, again, it's simplified, but what nature is. When we talk about nature, all these determinations are contained. Not everywhere, in a sense that a rock is a geological entity with chemical and physical properties, but it's not biological. There is no medicine for rocks. Yeah. Yeah, but that's just an illustration. But each, for instance, I simplify again, but an animal that belongs to zoology contains within himself almost all the previous determination. Namely, he inhabits an ecological environment, he's in relation with other living organisms, he's genetically and biologically determined, the environment in which he lives or has developed is determined geologically, geographically, etc. He obeys the laws of electromagnetism, chemistry, etc. He makes sounds, that's acoustics. He produces and consumes energy, that's thermodynamics. He's a physical object who obeys the laws of gravitation, etc. So this is just an example that all the categories are intertwined, but to say to see the unity within the multiplicity and the multiplicity within the unity, one has to categorize. So that's my current view of nature. And just to take an example, the usefulness of such a document, which seems completely at first random, but actually every day when I can, I read a little bit of geometry, a little bit of physics, a little bit of chemistry to try to gather knowledge about nature as a whole. And the knowledge when it is shared, it's becoming widespread. There's only one nature. There's only one set of physical, chemical, biological laws for every human. Yeah. Also, I forgot to make my formalist presentation. I improve intellectually every day. Here we are, the 2nd of December. I know that I become smarter every waking hour, every day, so it doesn't always mean better, but I become smarter every day. That's why I will try more and more to publish a chronological view of my development, because my latest videos, usually they are the most intellectually, not necessarily the best, but the most intellectually, although I think it's partly the case, but they are the most intellectually matured, one might say. So here it's the view of society, what you call the system, what people call the system, but the system is a totality. The determinations have to be given. So here the substratum of a society, these are the socio-biological determinations. Here we have, I will not read, it's clear. Here we have sociobiology, psychology, language and intelligence, and here is the formal presentation of what a society is. It begins, it's not a chronological beginning, but the fundamental determination are men and women relationship, the family units, one might say, and families and individuals gather together to produce institutions, economic, sociological, political, financial, cultural institutions, and everything is interconnected. And here that the best balance that I found between simplification, but for the purpose of making things intelligible, and all the spheres, all the layers, all the I don't know how to call this, they are interconnected, interrelated, one might say. And this is how to think in order to situate any event, to think correctly about a system. This is the view. And art, religion, and philosophy, they express the truth of a society. They reflect the truth of a society. That's why listening to American pop culture enables to understand current American society, but actually these are universal determination of the psyche, of the soul, and these are universal truth. Yeah. And here I explain to Michael and to Carolyn and to those that I call the European gods and goddesses, why are you the best? You are not the best in terms of pure quantitative intelligence. There are many people who are smarter or more competent in any given specific field, but you are the best nonetheless because you possess and you have been reconstructing unconsciously or consciously a full, a total knowledge, because you have explored to various degrees, which means various intensity, which means an extended period of time. You have explored all these topics plus the natural topics, and you are knowledgeable. Here I talk to you, Michael. You are the best intellectually outside of myself, not because you are an expert in any specific topic, but you can speak intelligently, you can say intelligent things, enlightening things, interesting things about all these topics that you know broadly. And the same goes for Caroline and for all the others that I have variously listed or that I have promoted. And usually intelligent people, they are capable of talking about the totality in an intelligent way. And what is amazing, many amazing things. I'm not trying to flatter you, I'm just being lucid and honest. What is amazing about you, Michael, is that you can spontaneously talk about the totality without thinking too much in terms of formalism. You spontaneously speak intelligently about all the topics. You have interesting things to say about all the topics, and you spontaneously think like an encyclopedist, like me in a way. But and I admire this in you, your ability to speak intelligently about all topics. That's really admirable. Here I'm honest, yeah. But so this is my view of a society, what people call the system. Yeah. So that's the formal presentation. Yeah, so now I had taken a few notes. Now I will promote books. I should have promoted these books at the beginning of the video. Bullshit Jobs. The Pantry Primer. This is what I call American Common Sense. The Utopia of Rules by Mr. Graeber. Real Education. Americans have been turned into idiots by the educational system. Don't worry, it happens. It happens in France as well. But actually, worry because it happens everywhere. Yeah. The School Revolution. Yeah, I will make a little bit of virtue signaling. This morning I made a $300 donation to the Ron Paul Institute. Can you top that? Can you give more money? For peace and prosperity. Well, the welfare state, that's a problem. Water survival guide, etc., etc. And to illustrate, not only the problems are universal, here the universal in Western societies, but also, just to illustrate the movement of consciousness, a book like the book of Mr. Graeber, it's first originally published in English by probably an American publisher, but of course it's being translated in a language like French, but in many other languages, probably in Korean, in German, in Spanish, etc., etc. Because this is just to illustrate the universalization, first the universality, the problems are universal, but the universalization in the sense that the universal is being particularized in all developed countries. That's how ideas are being spread. That's how a world consciousness emerges. And Mrs. Daisy Luther, and there are many other preppers in the American world, these ideas, they were not common. I mean, there has always been common sense, especially among peasants in continental Europe, but survivalism or prepping, as you call this, here's an example, Mr. Piero San Giorgio. Very intelligent, Mr. San Giorgio. You belong to the intellectual aristocracy as well. You are a little lower in the scale, but you are intelligent as well. This is such an illustration of the circulation of ideas. This book was published 10 years ago, but it is just to illustrate the world in which we live, where all the ideas of all over the world are being made available for anyone with an internet connection. But what I've noticed is that the overwhelming majority of good ideas, bad ideas as well. The overwhelming majority of great ideas, they come from America, of course. What did you expect? Very smart, these Americans. Yeah, that's what I had to say. Now I will read my note. I will not read my note, but I have taken a few notes. But what I intend to talk about, I spontaneously talk. I said it would be a couple of hours long, maybe. Yeah, so I've talked about the internet. I've talked about intensity and extension. Yeah, I wrote, I got deluded. Because in case it's not clear, I had spiritual experiences with the spirit of Odin, but then I realized there's only one spirit. So the one spirit is Christian, so actually the spirit of Odin is the spirit of Christianity, so we live in an age of spiritual revelation, etc., etc. But I got deluded. I tried to share my ideas in 2019, more than 3.5 years ago. I got deluded, and I keep getting deluded by myself in a way, because I get fooled by the quantitative determinations that I talked about at the beginning of the year, intensity and extension. Namely, I have spent the past 6 years of my life, since 2016, with a couple of exceptions in 2020 and 21, but I have spent 5 years at least of my life, since 2016, spending the overwhelming majority of my day reading books or watching videos, listening to podcasts about reading very intelligent books, listening to very intelligent people, Michael and Carolyn, for instance, or footnotes to Plato. These are the people probably that I've watched the most in 2022 in terms of quantity of time invested, or not necessarily time, because I've also watched others. I've watched partly Jean Robin, I've watched psychological channels like Psy2Go, but in terms of time invested, Michael and Carolyn, you are the two persons that I've watched the most over this year, and the most consistently, the more often, etc., over the years. But I got deluded because the people that I've been following since, let us simplify, since 2016, since my intellectual awakening, as I call this, they have very few, they are a very small quantitative amount of success. But not because the content is not good, precisely because it's way too good in a way. So it's too intense, too profound. That's why it's not yet extended, because of course intensity and extension are conceptually united, but it takes time to unfold. Jesus did not become famous during his lifetime as a worldwide phenomenon. Neither did Muhammad. Muhammad had a lot of success, but Jesus as well. But Jesus, Muhammad, the Buddha, they had success during their lifetime, but they became famous. It took a little bit of time. Now they are the most famous. Socrates was famous in Athens for a few thousands or a few tens of thousands of people during his lifetime, maybe at best. But eventually nowadays, hundreds of millions of people throughout the world have heard about Socrates, but it has taken 2,400 years. See you in the fifth millennium, into 2,500 years, maybe people will hear about me back then. I don't know. That's just an example. No, but seriously, yeah, I got deluded, and I'm still being deluded by the problem of quantity. Namely, I'm interested in people whose ideas are very profound and very elevated, and because of that they have very few quantitative success. And I always expect all the others to know what I know, to envision the world as I do, but actually they don't. But I have believed at some point that it's because my worldview was not serious enough, or because I was an idiot. But actually no, it's because I am way too smart. That's what I've understood over the past few months. One might say I suffer from an excess of intelligence, which paradoxically, it's not paradoxical, it's logical in a way. It turns me into an idiot sometimes. So yeah. Okay, now about the truth. The truth, because it's the truth, it has, by very definition, it has to be the same for all, for everyone. I wrote example. The truth is to be the same for a Vietnamese peasant in his 50s, a Bolivian politician in his 60s, for my immediate neighbors, for native Australians, for Europeans of continental Europe and of Northern America, for everyone, for the Chinese, for the Ethiopians, every thinking human, every thinking agent, because he thinks, if he thinks properly, the truth has to be the same for everyone. So, I've understood this. Potentially, it's not potentially, I understood that I am kind of programmed to speak the truth. I'm also programmed to speak a lot of deception, but precisely, here's the trick. Truth consists in unfolding the deception. Truth is not fixed, it's a process of unfolding, like layers of an onion. Or a beautiful woman that is being undressed. You're beautiful, Caroline. Of course. I haven't seen you. I just seen one picture of you. I don't even know what you look like. Maybe you're not as beautiful as I think you are, but your soul is beautiful, Caroline. You are a beautiful person, and you really are. Here, I'm joyful, but I know you are one of the most beautiful souls. Yeah. You are also pretty. I mean, I know you have declined a little bit because you talk about this, but I love you nonetheless. Yeah, so truth is the same for all. That's why what you have not understood, Michael Carolyn and the what I call the European gods and goddesses, is that your little spiritual experiences. Michael, I'm not sure you've had spiritual experiences, but Hyperboreans he had. and Stella as well, and Caroline, and Varg and Marie, your little spiritual experiences, you might think, oh, it's just your own, and it's valid for Jean Robin and David Thomas Wisdom, all the people that I have recognized because I know that they have had spiritual experiences. They think, you think, oh, it's my private thing, God talks to me, or Odin revealed himself to me, etc. No, I mean, yes, but the spirit that has awakened you, it's universal. But then there's a problem, it's not a problem, there's a distinction between Odin, which would be the name of the spirit of Europeans, and Christ, which would be the universal spirit, but the universal cannot be reached without the mediation of the particular. Here that's quite complex, like it's not, but these are Europeans which are being awakened predominantly because, I will not make the whole story, but yeah. And I've understood that I would say, I have to be held accountable for all the things that I have said, or not said, or for all the stupid things that I've said, all the intelligent things as well. I can say intelligent things sometimes. But in order to be free, the truth shall set you free, as Jesus says. First, I have to speak the same truth to everyone, but I cannot do this on a singular level. I cannot go out in the street and speak my truth, which is the totality actually, to every person, because it would take just 5 hours just to broadly introduce what I want to talk about. The people in the street, they do not have 5 hours, and I do not have 5 hours to dedicate to each singular person that I encounter. So I have to speak publicly, but then it brings about schizophrenic problems because I don't know who receives what, when, what parts of the message. It's not a message, it's a process, but what parts, what do they understand? That's why I try to show my documents in most of my recent videos, to show at least the full picture, see how I envision things on a formal level, so that to situate the context. Yeah. And yeah, the judgment, how do you call this, the last judgment, is simply to be held accountable for all the things that I have said. But as long as I can speak, I will keep saying things more and more intelligently, and I will not deny, I mean, maybe I will, but that would be dishonest, but I cannot deny that I've said the thing that I've said, but my motto is, as long as I experience myself as acting or being able to act, I will try to improve, not by denying what I've said or didn't say, but by improving in terms of becoming better. Yeah. And yeah, the quest, what I've understood recently is that in order to be free, anyone, but actually that's, I talk for myself, but for any other, if you, whoever you are, if you want to be free, spiritually, psychologically, politically even, you have to be willing to speak your truth, your worldview, I mean your truth. Since truth is a process, there are particular truths, but actually the truth is the totality. But what you consider to be true or just or right, you have to be willing to speak directly to any other, potentially. And there are a lot of people who are not willing to do this because of relationship of power. So, for instance, on the question of race, are people willing to talk about their racial views to all the others? To go and talk to Asians or to Africans or to Jewish people and to talk to them directly and say, this is what I think about race, this is what I think about politics. Are people aware are people willing to do this, and are they aware that when they express thoughts publicly it becomes available to all? I've realized this recently and no one else has realized this. That's why scheming, it's kind of counterproductive on the internet, I mean, because yeah, so what I've understood recently, partly thanks to you, Michael, that precisely I suffer from many psychological problems. There are many reasons, but one of them is that I have spoken on the internet for years with almost no reaction, and I've understood that in order to be free and to stop my mental breakdowns or my mental insanity, I have to be willing to share my worldview with Others, and the others, they begin by my immediate environment, and the people around me, they speak French. Around my empirical self, they speak French. So I've understood that I have to be willing to speak in French my worldview, which brings about a whole lot of problems, because here, I didn't write it, but the truth is the same for all, but the level of consciousness, the level of intelligence, the level of education, the level of intellectual maturity, in a sense, the willingness to accept scientific truths, is not the same for all, which brings about so many problems, because partly it's a challenge to awaken the normies, as you call this, the ordinary people. It's a challenge because one has to extract science and spirituality out of people who are plunged into the daily business of their ordinary life. So it's challenging to get their interest, to find a proper balance, to awaken them peacefully. One can awaken people with how do you call this? Cold water. You throw cold water, they awaken. That's not very comfortable. But to try to awaken people gradually, but it's difficult. It's already happening because it's a worldwide phenomenon, in the sense that all people who have access to the internet, they can have access to gradual parts of the truth. I had intended to put the links to the videos about Stella. She talks about this when she was 16 or 17, where she talks about how gradual awakening, which is the formal structure of who is Stella. Stella is the number one woman. Caroline, I said to you at some moment, you are the second most intelligent woman in the world. The number one is Stella. So who do I prefer? Well, I prefer you, Caroline, of course. That's a joke. I prefer Stella. But I love you too nonetheless. That's why here I will make a joke. But in my worldview, there is the wife and the mistress. But the mistress, no, the wife is not supposed to hear about the mistress. And otherwise, that's distress, maybe. Mistress, distress, I don't know. But they are not supposed to know about one another. I'm going to have problems with the European goddesses. Oh, they... What kind of situation have I found myself in? I want divorce. We are not married. Yeah. I don't want marriage then. You have to, you have no choice. Oh, they. That's one of the problems, in the sense that I am so smart that I anticipate, not in a sense of false anticipation, but I understand way too fast in a way. So that's why I'm kind of living in a delusional world, because I understand some aspects of reality so fast that then I lose myself, because I forget, or because the rest of reality is too slow, or they are not evolving at the same pace. But yeah. So yeah, I've understood about this notion of truth. Simplified, truth is the same for all. That's the very definition of truth. People have different levels of consciousness. That's what makes it so difficult to communicate. And in order to be free, one has to be willing and to be able to speak the same truth, potentially to everyone. That's my mission, one might say. I've understood recently that I will have, I don't know how it's going to happen, but potentially I have to be willing to go into the world, anywhere on this planet, or on other planets if there are intelligent entities. I don't think there are. But and to speak the same truth, my views about politics, sociology, economics, history, to everyone, which is kind of difficult. It requires courage and consistency. But yeah, this is what being held accountable means. Also, I have shared everything over, especially in 2022, I have shared everything about me. My psychological problems, my psychoanalytical problems, my personal data, my history. I have made a lot of videos where I speak really philosophically, namely, not with abstraction, but on a universal level. There is the singular psychological aspect, but there's also moments of universality when I talk about my categories, when I talk about universal truths, one might say. I've shared my library, my personal data, my name and address. I've shared everything. The problem is that I'm smart enough to know that it's not enough to be honest, because the truth is the totality, and I've spread what I call seeds of light, or pieces of the truth, but people cannot gather them all at the same time. So that's why now as long as I publish video, I will try to show the view of the totality. And but what I've written, what I think is, I have been playing more or less fair. I have been fair with all the others eventually, not directly but indirectly, by sharing all my knowledge, all the information about me, being transparent publicly. But people are not interested, or they do not receive. That's why people will receive part of the truth. There will be misunderstandings. It brings about frustration. I have to accept this, because precisely I have come to a point where I'm sick of asking myself constantly, but who knows what? So instead of trying to anticipate what others know and don't know, as long as I can speak publicly, I will share all my knowledge. My most recent videos, they are more and more not totalitarian, but total, in a sense. I share the view of the totality in each of my most recent videos. This is what I know. Whether or not you can situate, whoever you are, you can situate yourself, your level of knowledge and understanding in relation, when I say, to me and my worldview. Yeah. Also, I've written, I am partly a pathological truth teller. I'm also partly a liar, but in a sense I'm a pathological truth teller, like in the how do you call it, the fairy tale, not the fairy tale, the tale about the emperor's new clothes, the innocent child who says, hey, but the emperor is naked. Because of partly my personal psychology, that's my German self for the better, the innocent German who is very naive. He looks at the world and says, but wait a minute, the banking system is completely corrupt, the educational system is corrupt, the politicians, most of them, they are corrupt, the white people, they are being replaced, most of the objects that people work to produce and then spend money to buy, they are useless crap. People are wasting their life working jobs they hate so that they can buy shit they don't need. There's a lot of useless stuff. People are not rigorous when they speak. I mean, I spontaneously speak the truth. Very naively. That's really my childish aspect, in the sense of being completely naive. I look at the world and I see, but yeah. So I am partly a liar, not consciously, but by the very fact that I do not speak the same truth to everyone at the same time. I'm partly a deceiver, but I'm also a pathological truth teller in a way, because I have a sense of it's partly naivete, but also a sense of moral duty. Yeah. Also, the reason why I make this video is because I am connected to everyone, because everything is interconnected, but I am personally connected with specific people. You and I'm here, I think about Michael and Carolyn, but all the other, actually all the people that I have mentioned in my videos, I am connected to them, and I don't know who will receive what when, but just my sense of just to be at peace with myself, I have to at least make a video for the people that I know will hear about me at some moment, because I talk about you and I have talked about you in many of my videos, and especially the oldest ones, those that have been preserved and uncensored. These were my videos of 2019. And I just made a comment, just so that you or others might understand me eventually at some moment. I've realized that my standards sometimes they are way too high, in a sense that the people who watch my oldest videos of 2019, I can say something which for me was self-evident, but I had just spent 10 years trapped in my room and then in my apartment, because I thought that I was physically too ugly. That my physical ugliness was an embarrassment. I had just spent 10 years trapped in an apartment, not going out, having almost zero social interaction, because I thought that I was too ugly physically. There have been moments in 2022, in the early months of the revival of the channel Cultural Hegelianism, where I received no answer, no comment, no reaction for my videos. And I have believed that it was because, I have partly believed this, because my English wasn't good enough. When I invested a lot of time in some videos and I received no comment, I believed maybe my English is not fluent enough, my accent is not good enough, so people do not understand. I try to reach, that's what an English-speaking audience, but actually I unconsciously spoke to everyone, but I tried to reach an English-speaking audience and I received no reaction almost, so I thought it's because they do not understand what I say because of the lack of quality of my English. Here I will be a little bit, I do a little bit of trash talking, Caroline. Then I heard you speak French or German, and I said, but your accent, it's terrible. Your accent when you speak French or German, or speak French names, or when you speak German, it's terrible. But you are a very intelligent person. You are an American, you are intelligent, you are educated, etc. But you do not speak very well foreign languages. And then I realized that I had such high standards for others, especially the English and the Americans. I thought, but every average American, he can speak English, yeah, he can speak Spanish as well, because the US are being invaded by Mexico. That's a joke. It's not always funny, but no, seriously. But I believe, okay, the Americans, I know that the American educational system is broken, but the Americans, they have standards in terms of intelligence, IQ, competence. And why do I say this? Because there's a book, How to Read a Book by Mr. Charles Van Doren and Mortimer J. Adler. And I know that in the 1940s, the Americans, they had the best educational system in the world, the most literate population, one of the most intelligent. Yeah, but there have been decline. I tend to forget this. So I unconsciously expect every average American, I gotta be careful with what I say. I would say I expect the average American to be white. Unconsciously, that's what I expect. I know it's no longer the case quantitatively, but the average white American to speak English, of course, very well, but also to speak at least 2 or 3 languages fluently. But actually, no. That's why I keep being deceived. Also, I have believed for a very long time that the reason why people were not interested in what I had to say was because it was not rigorous enough. Because my standards were the standards of Hegel. And here I deluded myself in a sense that I have become a fanatical metaphysician. And partly thanks to you, Michael, I have come back into the real world, but one cannot leave the real world as such, because nature is the spatio-temporal world. So, but I have had more social interactions over the past few months, the past couple of months. And talking with ordinary people has helped me tremendously, because I've realized that I was really completely disconnected, and that the level of consciousness, it's not because people are stupid. It's simply because, partly there is the difference of IQ with most people, because I have a very high IQ. I'm not boasting, but simply I speak how it is. I have a very high IQ, so by my very quantitative determination of intelligence, I am disconnected from the overwhelming majority of white people first, but of the whole of mankind, just for quantitative determination of intelligence. But then there's the problem of education, but also the problem of interest, and the lack of time. People, they do not have the time to get interested in the topics that I am interested in, because they have a life, as they call this. But here's a serious question: what does it mean to have a life? To have social interactions and stuff, of course, but people who really work stupid jobs, which are boring, counterproductive, brings about pollution, disruption, social parasitism, it's not their individual fault, but people who have bullshit jobs, their bullshit job, it is useful on a singular perspective because it enables them to earn a living, but in the grand perspective, of an entire society or in the world economics, it's counterproductive. It brings, again, pollution, disruption, produces useless stuff, etc., etc. So in this sense, most people are slaves. Here, that's my Marxist self in the good sense. A lot of people in today's world, they are simply slaves because they work useless jobs. The people who work hard to do something productive and meaningful, they are not slaves, even if they work hard. But the people who are forced to work mindless jobs, which are socially parasitical, they are slaves. Yeah. Also, I have written, I suffer from many mental health problems, autism, schizophrenia, I'm partly psychotic, paranoid, I suffer from anxiety. Yeah, I really suffer from psychiatric problems, but for metaphysical reasons. And I know that you do as well, Caroline. And Caroline, here I talk to you. I don't know when or if you will ever hear this video or my other videos. I know you will in some plane of existence. We will be intellectually connected, and that's what I want to. I want your perspective. I want you to have my perspective, and I want to be, I would say, reunited. I don't know if it's how it works, but to be reunited with you. If it's not in this world, I wouldn't say in the next, but in a different plane of existence. I can imagine you saying, "I'm not interested. No, please, no." That's where I can become a little bit annoying because, you know about her European mythology. I'm just a simple European person. When I see a European goddess, I'm attracted. But there's a reason why you are a European goddess, Caroline. It's not just mindless talking, because you are the most intelligent behind or next to Stella. There's Stella, then there's you. But you are intelligent as a female deity in all the layers. There's a reason. I'm not a complete idiot. I can be stupid, but I'm not a complete idiot who starts talking about mythology. What is he talking about? The European gods and goddesses? What are you talking about? I'm talking about the spiritual life of God. Yeah. So, yeah, Caroline, you are, I know, the person in this world who is the most like me in one specific aspect that I don't know the details of your empirical life, although you keep revealing them in your videos, which are very interesting. I will talk about this later, but I can imagine that you have probably spent most of your adult life trapped in a library, like I have, not literally, but you are a book nerd, a bookworm, as they call this. So you suffer from psychiatric problems, your body hurts constantly, you are very intelligent, you have the same topic of interest as I do, you have read countless books. In this sense, we are very similar. This is one of the reasons why I love you so much. Yeah. Also, I've written, Caroline and Michael, the reason why you have not been interested in my videos is because the level of consciousness where you find yourself in at this moment, we are December 2022, is the level of consciousness where I found myself at 5 years ago. 5 years ago. I have evolved. In 2022, my level of intelligence and consciousness has evolved and developed at the speed of light, even faster. I've just spent 9 months in a metaphysical training of a very high level. So the reason why most of what I say has been completely unintelligible and has attracted almost no attention is actually because, in a way, I can, on an ordinary level of consciousness, I can be dumb, I can be incompetent in many fields, I am ignorant of many topics, etc. Okay, I have confessed this and I try to improve, but I am very limited on a singular empirical level. But my mind nonetheless travels not at the speed of light, but at the speed of light multiplied by itself. Yeah, in this sense, that's part of the tragic aspect of whatever I am. Did I give my name? I give my name in all of my video, but my name is Luca. Is that unconsciously or consciously, I've been seeking friends with whom I could share and have interesting discussions about what has been of interest for me since 2016. I mean, everything has been interesting in a sense of an aspect of me, and I want simply to have friends with whom I could talk about what I would call our topic of interest, our little community. We would talk about Europe, not the European continent, but the history of Europe, the European people, but in a peaceful way, in an enjoyable way, like friends would do this. And we could talk about psychology, anthropology, economics, sociology, politics, history, religion, art, philosophy. You are the people, what I call the European gods and goddesses, with whom I would like to have peaceful discussions with, but for all the aforementioned reasons and others, the very nature means the essence or the concept of what I am. I tried in 2018 to go to the US to talk to Stella empirically. That was my plan. I wanted to seduce, here in the negative sense, I wanted to seduce Stella because I wanted to talk to her about my spiritual experiences, my God experience. It has backfired. So I have given up on the idea to try to encounter people directly and say, hey, I will tell you my spiritual life and stuff. No. So for the very nature of what I am, if I want to reach you, I have to speak publicly on the internet, which means that potentially everyone can access this. Which brings about drama. So at this moment in time, I don't know if I will ever be able to have a peaceful discussion, not only with you, Michael, Carolyn, but I can include Stella, Hyperborean, the European gods and goddesses, Marie and Varg, Survive the Jive, Carol, etc. Jean Robin, even, you are not a European god, Jean, but you are among the spiritual elite. Dr. Deep State, Footnotes to Plato, Matthew, etc., etc. So I don't know if I will ever be able to peacefully talk with the people that I find the most interesting, the most brilliant, the most intelligent, etc. But then I don't know if I will ever be able to have a peaceful discussion about interesting topics with any other at all, for the reason of who or what I am. That's why I guess I will speak at some moment with others because they will be interested in what I have to say. But will it be peaceful? In a sense, peaceful means, it doesn't mean that I want to antagonize everyone, although I have done this, but it's simply to be able to talk without feeling the pressure of all the people starving, being killed and abused all over the world. Because potentially I could have, and I partly have when I go out to do my daily business, I have peaceful discussions with ordinary people. But first, the counterpart is that I said to myself, I have to produce virtuous action to justify the fact that I talk to people. And second, I cannot talk about the topics which are interesting to me. I could potentially, but then I would have to focus the attention of the others for many hours just to introduce what I want to talk about. And the others, they have a life, as they call this, so they would not be interested. They would find this disturbing. So I am forced to lie in a way, and I've come to a point where it's making me sick. So I want to speak the whole truth to everyone, and for this I have to speak in French, then in English again, but to speak French to the people who know me empirically. Yeah, so in this sense, I can have peaceful discussions, but then I know that while I am talking, there are the political scheming, there are the tension, there is the war in Ukraine, there are the starvation. I do not care equally about all the problems, but the fact that there are constant tensions everywhere, it has come to a point where it's driving me. It's not driving me insane in the sense that I have learned to stabilize, but it becomes annoying, and I have come to a point where I will not try to solve every singular problem one by one. I will try to become the center. It's not as if I had a choice, but I will become the center of my own world, and since my world is the world, I will become the center of the world. I don't know when, but that's my decision, and that's the tragedy of what I am, in a sense that I cannot peacefully talk to an other without shaking the entire cosmos. Yeah. Then, it's connected to this. I said in a private mail, not mail in a sense of masculine, in a private mail, in a sense of email, Michael, I wrote that I wanted to hurt you. I have explained through the written word, but what here I speak publicly. I said this because what I have believed, and I partly still do, it's not clear, but that there is negativity in me. I know this, and I unconsciously exteriorize my negativity, which is made manifest in all the negative aspects of reality that one can witness daily. So there is an unconscious manifestation of my negativity. Negativity is another word for evil. I have consciously exteriorized my negativity, or sometimes unconsciously. I will talk about this. But my plan, it's not a plan, but what I consciously wanted to do was to reduce quantitatively the amount of people which would be hurt by my negative tendencies, and to focus this on the best people, the strongest, the most intelligent, those that I still think have the capability of enduring the difficult aspect. Eventually, all humans, they share suffering because humans are made in the image of God, and God suffers. Here, that's the Christian mythology, the suffering of Christ. Yeah. But so there's partly this, I would say aristocratic, in the sense that I wanted, in my view, to stop all the conflicts of the world and to focus the negativity onto the people, not that I spontaneously hate. Or on the contrary, you are the people that I spontaneously love and that I have been interested in, fascinated by for the past 5 years of my life. You are the people that I love the most as individuals. So why would I want to hurt you? The first reason is because I wanted to, how do you say it, to limit my negativity and to aim this at people who can fight back intellectually. That's the first aspect. The second aspect is that empirically I've noticed that I have a tendency to hurt the people that I love the most. That's how I function. Love hurts, whether it's right or wrong, says Avril Lavigne. So that's what I said to myself a few months ago. It is partly still true, but it has partly changed. I hurt the people that I love, and it hurts me. It's not in my interest because it really hurts me. And I love the people that I hurt. Here, that's my compassionate aspect, namely when I see people who suffer, the starving children, the people who are disabled, who have a poor economic condition. Spontaneously, there's an aspect of me which is compassionate. But I do not care about these people as individuals, but I care about their suffering, and I try to appease. Sometimes I can be clumsy, but I try to appease the suffering of others. In a sense, I have negative tendency, but I'm not, I would say I'm not always a psychopath, in the sense that the suffering of others most of the time it makes me suffer as well. So these are the reasons. But then I realized, and also because I have also here, that's the third aspect, I have a competitive self sometimes, and I want to challenge the gods. Namely, I have a competitive aspect. I want, Peterson talks about this, about super intelligent people. They need counterparts to some sort of competitors. In here, that would be in a noble aristocratic sense, a competition. Because boredom kills me. I need to compete with others in kind of a playful way, but plays, they can become dangerous. Nietzsche knew this. A woman, a man, the real man wants two things, danger and play. That's why he wants woman, the most dangerous plaything. If I start playing with Caroline, I'm gonna have problems. But you can handle yourself, Caroline. You are a strong, independent, not woman, a goddess. But here I must confess, that's part of my pathological truth-telling. I must confess, I have this tendency to be competitive with males for status, but I want to compete with the best. And with women, Stella, Caroline, and Scarlett, these are the three competing women that I think of. Scarlett Ravenswood, in kind of a playful way. It can hurt sometimes, but yeah, there are these aspects. But on a more, I wouldn't say more serious, on a more, when I'm really in a stable mood, I just want to be with the people that I love. If it's not physically, empirically, then spiritually, somehow, somewhere. At some moment. Also, in the continuity, Michael, Stella, Hyperborean, and Caroline, you are the four most intelligent, most brilliant, and best person in the world. Because you are not the best in every topic, but because your entire process, you have gone through all the layers and you have reconstructed your identity. There are other very intelligent, very competent people, but they have been helped by spiritual intervention from God. It doesn't take away their credit, but they have received external help, one might say. Here I think about Jean Robin, Dr. Deep State, and all the inspired Christians. They can be great, I cannot deny this, but they are inspired directly by revelation from the Spirit of God. I don't know how it works, but yeah. But you, the pagans, you have gone through a self-reconstructing process, and it's valid for Varg and Marie and Carol as well. A self-reconstructing process. You are becoming your own gods. So the Christians, the ordinary Christians, they have to believe in God we trust, but the self-made gods, who do they have to believe in? There is no God that they can look, I mean, they can envision this, but eventually they have to believe in themselves, to trust themselves. Who created the gods? Who created God? God is a self-created entity. And here that's very serious. That's why God is an American. God is of all countries, but mostly America, because America is a self-made country. And God is a self-made entity. And here that's one of my most profound ideas, that to be self-made means you have to take the blame for all your failures, but the credit for all your success as well. And this is the American ethos. And that's why the United States of America are made in the image of God. There are problems in America. There have been historical problems, and in modern America there are a lot of problems. But America, whatever people say against America, it's a self-made country. I know the problems with the Indians, the blacks, the Jews, the tension, etc. But it's a self-made country. God is self-made. There is no other country. I mean, to a certain extent, yeah, all countries are self-made, but it's a consciously, by obeying a set of of autonomous rules. The Americans, historically, these are people who gave themselves laws and rules to follow, religious, ethical, and constitutional, and they have created themselves by obeying their own laws. That's why it's a free country. It's the country of liberty because it's obedience to one's own laws. And in this sense, here I'm very serious, the Americans, people can laugh about the Americans, oh, decadence, etc. But the Americans, on an ontological level, it's a country worthy of respect and admiration because it's self-made. Self-made mistakes, but self-made success as well. And in America, there's a way lot more successes than failures. So yeah, these four people, Michael, Stella, Hyperbole, and Carolyn, you are the best because you are Americans, not just as citizens, because here I will not go into too much complexity, but to be an American is just, it doesn't mean just to have an American visa or passport or citizenship. You are American in mind, to various degrees, in the sense that it's not your substantial self, and here I explain complex ideas in a very simple way. For me, if that's what I think about, I've thought about a lot. If you say, what is an American? The archetypal American in the 21st century. What is the archetypal American? Maybe I'm deluding myself, but if I had to answer, I would say Ron Paul. Ron Paul is authentically American, and so is Charles Murray, Thomas Sowell, someone like Daisy Luther. She's not authentically American, but she embodies the archetype of self-reliant, competent women. And Jeff Deist. Jeff Deist is a little bit right-wing, but he also is the embodiment of the archetype of the American as just an American. In a sense, Thomas Sowell, Ron Paul, Charles Murray, Jeff Deist, Daisy Luther, these are the kind of people, these are illustrations, but they are what I would call the archetypal Americans. In the 21st century. Then there are other archetypes, like Trump is an archetypal American, but in a different type. Trump and Kanye West, they are typical Americans, but in a sense of larger than life, over the top, entertainment, strong personality, charisma, influence, etc. In a sense of show business. For the good aspect, there can be, for the bad aspect, that would be Paris Hilton. Nothing personal against Mrs. Hilton, but Paris Hilton is the archetype of the American, which can be connoted negatively. People say, oh, America, Lindsay Lohan, Paris Hilton, that's decadence, etc. Or Kim Kardashian, etc. Here, that's really the stupid view that people have of a negative view of modern America. I'm not here to judge good and bad like this, but that's just to illustrate in the sense that Trump and Kanye West, these are illustrations, they are also larger than life and entertainers, but they have more depth than others, in a sense. Or Ronald Reagan, that's also in the 1980s, that's also the typical American in the sense of entertainment, show business, and a little bit superficial from the perspective of Europeans with a culture. And in this sense, Ron Paul, Jeff Deist, Thomas Sowell, Charles Murray, they are also archetypal Americans, but not in this sense. They are what I consider libertarian Americans, in a good sense. And Martin Luther King, I don't know a lot about his biography, but partly he belongs to this category as well, in the sense of the archetypal American means for me libertarian, Protestant, quantitatively overwhelmingly Anglo-Saxon, but not only. It is open for all people of good intention and good character, etc., etc. But historically, empirically, overwhelmingly Anglo-Saxon. So there is the American archetype. So you are all Americans in this sense. You participate in the idea of America as a noble idea of liberty, but you are more than that in a way. You are less than that and also more than that. You are also Europeans. Europeans, it belongs with the anthropological determinacy of anthropological Europeans, what is called white people. In a sense, when I use the word European, I mean, if I mean Europeans of Europe, usually I specify, but when I say European, for me it's a synonymous for white. the white Australians, the white Canadians, the white Americans, they are Europeans anthropologically and culturally, no matter how brainwashed they have been. So in a sense, you are Europeans anthropologically, of course, but you are also not just anthropological Europeans because you have a culture. And here, it's more valid for Carolyn and Hyperboreans because you really are the most authentic Europeans are Carolyn, Hyperborean, Varg, and Marie. They are the most knowledgeable. And here, I imagine that I talk to you, Carolyn. I don't know when you will get my message. But you have to understand. For me, it's clear, but for you, it's not. When I hear you talk, Carolyn, for me, you are the voice of Europe. In the sense, your little live streams, which make a few hundreds of views, the ideas, some of the ideas that you express, the best ideas, I mean, you only express good ideas, but the more universal, in a sense, where you do not talk about your dogs or your snails, it can be interesting. Yeah, but I would be interested in whatever you talk about, Carolyn. You can talk about snails, you can talk about any topic, if it's you, it's interesting. I mean this. I mean, any topic? Well, I have a twisted mind, so... but I will listen to you talk about any topic. I might regret having said this. Oh, no, but more seriously. When I look at you, not with my eyes, but when I consider you, Carolyn, you are the voice of Europe in the sense, I've already told you this, but now I speak this publicly in a video that I will post, I don't know when, but it will become public at some moment. What you say is potentially of very high interest to all anthropological Europeans because you talk about their substance, their spiritual substance, the soul of Europe. You talk about the culture of Europe, the art of Europe, the religion of Europe, and you talk intelligently. So this is intensity and extension. Your ideas about Europe are very intense because they are very profound, very elevated, and they have to become extended because potentially all the Europeans of the world will be, at some point, they will be interested in your work and in what you have to say, because here I will make a little bit of a praise. You are the soul collector, maybe. How do you call it? The Norn. How do you call this? I'm not an expert in the metaphorical aspect of European mythology, but the goddesses who collect the souls, the Norns, I think they call this. Maybe you will have to collect the souls of all Europeans because you encapsulate their soul as a collective people. You do not realize this, but I can give you the perspective of continental Europe. You are more knowledgeable, it's so self-evident, but you are more knowledgeable about what I call Europe, and here Europe means the culture, religion, art, history of Europeans, which means anthropological Europeans. You are more knowledge, and the same goes for Scarlett as well, and for Marie. You are more knowledgeable about Europe than it's not the overwhelming majority, it's the 99% of Europeans of continental Europe. That's why there will be at some point a great change of perspective, namely, people will suddenly be interested in what you, with your few hundreds of views, have to say, because you express the soul of Europe. So not only all Europeans will be interested in what you have to say, but eventually the people of the entire world, because Europe is a particular people, a particular culture, etc. But the universal contains the particular. The particular contains the universal within itself. So Europe has the specificity of being a particular people with a culture, religion, etc. But this particularity is universal. So eventually everyone will be interested. But yeah. So this illustrates very simply the age in which we live, namely an American person living in Antarctica. You can be the voice of 700 million people, and even more, but here let us restrict to Europeans. That's why we live in kind of an insane age, Because Vladimir Putin, Mr. Putin, whether you like it or not, you are white. You look white to me. You may have genes from Asia, but you are white. And in the sense, you belong to the European family. So at some moment, I don't know how it's going to happen, but Mr. Putin, as long as you live, at some moment you will have to be interested in the mythological perspective on Europe provided by Carolyn and others. But yeah, there has to be a re-establishment of hierarchy. And in my hierarchy, intelligent women, they rule over less intelligent men. Ah, so you're a feminist? Of course. I mean, depending on the what you mean by feminist. The European goddesses, they will love me at some moment. Maybe they will have a problem with me as well. Oh, they. I will laugh while I can. Yeah. Now I wrote UPS. Here I will draw. I will take a few minutes to draw because it's not complicated, but sometimes illustrations can help. Caroline, I will talk while I'm drawing this. I imagine that I talk to you, but actually I talk to everyone. But what you have not understood, and what a lot of people have not understood, is that I have lived. Here I speak my singular case, but it can be universalized. Universalized in the sense for all the people who have had an internet connection and leisure. I have listened to your live streams, not on a daily basis, but rather consistently since June 2018. It has been 4.5 years. During 2020 and 21, I kind of was a little bit disconnected. But in 2018, 2019, 2020, so for 3 years of my life, I have been listening, not on a daily basis, but rather consistently, your production. I've re-watched, or it's not what, re-listened to what you're saying, sometimes several times. Yeah, so I must confess, I have come to I mean, it was a, how do you call it, love at first sight. When I discovered you, I didn't see you, but I was spontaneously in love. You will hear about this anecdote at some moment. It took me 15 minutes when I discovered your first video, not your first video, but the first video that I discovered of you in June 2018. After 15 minutes, it was about romanticism and nationalism. After 15 minutes of listening to you talk, for the first time, I said to myself, I understand everything about you, and I already love you. Perfect love. There is problem with perfect love because perfection means everything, basically. But yeah. What I want to say that I have come to fall in love with you, but I've never seen you, Caroline. But I have fallen in love with your mind. Sometimes women can be mindless, but with the content of your mind, with your soul, with your voice, with your personality, and this can happen in the age of the internet. What kind of love is this? It's platonic love, one might say. It's better than no love, but we live in an age simply where people can become followers of others on a consistent basis. It already happened in the 1930s with the advent of the radio and then television. People who became in love, it's not love, they became fascinated by stars, the first radio popular figures, the TV figures, James Dean, Marlon Brando, etc., etc. But they had very few access to their idol, one might say. But with the age of the internet, with ordinary people who consistently and constantly produce content, one can follow the intellectual development and the life. There are people who share their life, and people can become fascinated by others, and that would be love, one might say. And the problem, it's not a problem, but the problem is that I only get interested in the best. I will talk about this precisely, that's why I intend to talk about, but I have become interested in you, and in a sense I know you, even though I never talked to you, I've never seen you. I mean, I've talked through the mediation of a few comments, to which you replied, and it has given me a great confidence boost. But I've never talked to you normally, I've never seen you. In a sense, I don't know you at all. I don't know what it's like to be with you in a day-to-day basis. If only I knew! Maybe if you had a good sense of humor, if you hear this, you say, if only you knew. Yeah, no, but seriously, in a sense, I don't, that's one of the peculiarities and particularities of the internet age. I don't know you at all empirically, but I know you conceptually, completely. And with the people that surround me, that's the opposite. Maybe I can know them, the people of my empirical life. I'm becoming more and more of a loner, but I have known them empirically, but not universally or only by applying my categories. But it's complicated. But what I mean is, it happens more intensely with Stella. Who is Stella? What is Stella? Stella is a girl who produced a few videos in 2017 and 18, and I watched, I think, maybe for broadly 5 hours. If you combine all the videos that I watched from, maybe I've watched 5 or 6 hours. She produced 5 or 6 hours of content if all her videos were added together, which I watched, but then I watched them several times, so I've watched more than 5 hours of Stella, but the difference, 5 hours of distinct content, and these 5 or 6 hours of combined video content that I've watched from her, it was enough for me to fall in love platonically, one might say. Platonic love is not a fall, it's an elevation, yeah, but to fall in love with her. And in a sense, Stella has been a very important part of my life in 2018, 19, and 22, although I never talked to her at all. I haven't had any news about her for 3 years, but that's my specificity, that I know that the idea which lives in her soul, one might say, is universal. And who is Stella? She's the universal woman, the eternal woman. She's the embodiment of the archetype of femininity. That's why I'm in love with her, because who else? There's only one woman, and she's just the most concentrated archetype of womanhood. So as a male, I have to be in love with her. But even if I know that I have to, I nonetheless get deceived, because every time I watch the videos or reread what she wrote, reread the notes that I took from what she said, I just by reading her word, I fall in love again. And the same goes with you, Caroline. I've recently read an article that you've been writing in Europa Sun, which I had never read before, but just reading what you write, it's enough for me to, I would say, to be in love, to be fascinated, to be amazed. I'm not always in this mood, but here I am. And this is the weird aspect about me, is that I have really a cognitive, intellectual view of others. And that's partly my problem, but also my solution, in the sense that this is what I intended to talk about while I'm drawing this picture. I explain how I understand myself at this moment in time. I've discovered this recently, thanks to my encounter with empirical people, as I call them, namely human beings, which was inspired by what I call my American ethos, and also pieces of advice by Michael, to get more into contact with other people. That's my representation of UPS. The particular is contained under the universal, and so is the singular under the particular, and the singular contains the determination of the particular and of the universal in itself. Yeah. What do I want to say? Yeah. What I want to say is that I have recently understood, by encountering ordinary people. Here it's for you, Michael. because maybe only you can understand this as I see this as of now, because you are the most intelligent. I have a scientific self. That's the Ozin, the quest for knowledge, etc. The science, by its very nature, is universal. Empirical people, by their very nature, they are concrete, they are individuals, they are singular. I have spent the past 9 years of my life reading books since 2013. Since 2016, these have been more and more interesting books. So I have become really a scientist. Not very competent in all fields of endeavor, but my mindset is scientific in a sense, spontaneously. I'm like Hegel. I seek the universal in all things. And I have lived as an empirical individual, completely disconnected from society in terms of encounter with others. So I have the view of the universal, which would be God. That's how I envision this. But actually I have realized recently, thanks to my encounters with ordinary people, that when I talk about universals, when I talk scientifically, whether it's philosophy through metaphysics and logic or through the various sciences, people, they are not interested because it's too abstract, or they react negatively because they experience this as a violation of their singular self. It happens to your viewers as well, Caroline. One of them said, you are boring with your metaphysics. That's not how he expressed it, but I talked vaguely seriously in terms of philosophy, and the reaction was, you are boring. I've understood recently, over the past few weeks, that when I speak as a scientist, which has become my spontaneous way of talking, namely to talk about what is universal, what is valid for all, in my day-to-day encounter, when I go buy bread or vegetables, I do not... Sometimes I do. That's the problem with me. Here I'm in a mood to laugh, but... I do not always talk universally, but I am completely disconnected from... but I have been completely disconnected from ordinary relationship with others. And I thought that the universal was good, because this is what is valid for all, this is what enables people to agree with one another, this is what helps solve conflicts. Science is the same for all, except when it is being falsified by leftist scholars, or right-wing scholars, but predominantly leftist. But yeah, science is what unites. And I have believed for years that the universal was just good, that it was God, and that the singular, my singular, was negative, which it is philosophically, but it was just bad, evil. But when I talk to other people, I realize that for them, that's the opposite. For them, their singular self is good, because this is what enables them to experience life and social relationships. And when I talk about the universal, I receive almost nothing but negativity, because people, they feel threatened or negated, because in ordinary consciousness people do not think of themselves as being singular embodiments of universal categories. They experience themselves as being singulars, but what they don't see is that the universal and the particular is contained within their singularity. But only the people who have gone on a quest of self-knowledge can even remotely envision what I talk about, and all the others, they are trapped. It's not a trap, maybe it's partly a trap, partly an opportunity. The same is true for the universal. The singular and the universal, they are both a trap and an opportunity, a blessing and a curse, a poison and a gift, etc., etc. Because I have been trapped in my universality, and ordinary people, the overwhelming majority, they are trapped in their singularity, and I can shed light to them, I can enlighten their singular life, and they can enlighten my universal life. And I've understood really recently that I have been, and I still have the tendency to be negative, which means partly evil, against others, all the others eventually, because of what I consider to be good. When I try to be rigorous and systematic and to speak metaphysically, people, either they are interested, but a little bit skeptical, or they are not interested because it's too complex, or they reject me because it negates their singularity. I illustrate very simply. Caroline, that's how you reacted, but you reacted with a good mood. That's why I love you so much. When I talk to you, you say you have just no, I didn't say that, but you have female intelligence. I predicate a universal category onto you as a singular, and you react negatively, although in a positive mood, because you do not want to be reduced to your female aspect. You are not just an intelligent woman. Even if I praise you, say, you are the second smartest intelligent woman on this planet, you react negatively because for you to reduce intelligence to the category of male and female, you already react negatively. There's a little fight in you. I like that. Hopefully. But that's just an illustration. And I understand others in this sense. But I cannot be a hypocrite. That's what I wanted to talk. I cannot, not that I've understood, I can improve, and that's why I improve daily and continuously, but I will try to adjust, to modify, to soothe my negative tendencies in as peaceful a way as possible, but I will not become a complete hypocrite in the sense that I will not pretend that suddenly, I'm interested in the singular life of all other humans. No, I'm not. I'm interested in the universal of the universal. And the overwhelming majority of human beings on this planet, I am not interested in them on a singular level. One might say, it's because you don't know them. If you learn how to get it, if you knew more about them, you would learn to love them. Probably, but I know already that there are, here that's what I wanted to talk about. There are very few people who are genuinely interesting just on their singular level. And I've understood that in order to love someone, one has to love his or her singularity. And that's what I wrote and what I've understood about the question of biographies. I've read almost zero I've read countless books, not always thoroughly, but I've read countless books and bought hundreds and hundreds of books, more than 1,000, maybe more than 2,000 books, not 2,000, but more than 1,500 books, considering the book that I've bought and then sold. Hundreds and hundreds of books. I have bought very few biographies or autobiographies because spontaneously I am not interested in the singular aspects of others, be it historical figures, politicians, superstars, artists. There are people. If I had the peaceful opportunity to read biographies, I would read the good biographies about a few persons. I'm interested in the life of Mr. Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson, the Austrian painter, Bismarck, Robespierre, Caroline. I know you have been reading a biography. Martin Luther, I would be interested. I've read partly biographies about Cicero, Caesar. I know broadly the life of the great philosopher, the important figures of antiquity, but not because I've read biographies, but because their singular life is contained within the unfolding of the historical process, etc. But people, here I will take an example to illustrate. Ron Paul. I have a great deal of admiration for Ron Paul. His ideas, his consistency, his virtue, he's an admirable man. But I've read recently End the Fed. I had already partly read the book, but I've reread more systematically, and it's a very good book because it contains a great deal of information about the mechanism of economics, how it functions, etc. It's a good book, but it's really weird because it mixes universal determination of economics and finance with singular examples, with examples drawn from ordinary life of the ordinary life of Ron Paul. He mixes universal determination of economics with psychological anecdotes, autobiographical anecdotes. It's really weird because the kind of books that I've been used to reading, they are filled with pure abstractions. But because the singular is contained under the universal and the particular, the pure abstractions, they do not exist God knows where. They are being embodied in singular cases. So just to take an example, to find personal anecdotes in a book about economics and finance, it's really weird. but I understand how it can help connect people with Ron Paul. They can identify with Ron Paul because he's a man of the people. He grew up in a farm. He had to work hard. He didn't have a lot of money. He is a self-made physician, etc. So yeah, it can shed light. But I admire Ron Paul and the ideas that he defends. And I admire other people in the moderate sphere. Someone like Charles Murray is worthy of admiration. Even someone like Stephen Molyneux. I don't know a lot about him, but I know broadly his ideas. He's worthy of respect. But I am not interested in the individual life of these people. That's not my worldview. Would you like to hear more about the personal life of Charles Murray? Well, it would be more interesting than the personal life of many others, but spontaneously I would say no. I leave you your privacy, your family, and the people, your friends, your colleagues, etc. If they want to be okay, but what I'm interested in you are your ideas, which are being expressed in your books. In this sense, I'm a classical Hegelian. So spontaneously, I have. Take another example that I've already mentioned. I started reading, it was January or February of 2022, I started reading the autobiography of Charles Darwin. It's very difficult to read because it's not really interesting. I'm not talking about this singular book, but reading the autobiography, even of the greatest men in terms of science or politics or art, it can help shed light, but spontaneously I am not interested in this singular aspect. There are people, I could add Richard Wagner, I would be interested. I bought his book. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, he talks about his personal life in a lot of his books, but spontaneously, in terms of intellectual content, I'm interested in universal ideas. Another example, I have almost read very few novels, even less novels written by women, because it's purely psychological. It can be enlightening, and I've read a few great novels by Stendhal, Dostoevsky, Steinbeck, Hemingway, etc. But I'm not spontaneously attracted by novels because it's psychological, it's singular, it's individual. It can help enlighten. There are great novels, but this is not the kind of book that I've been spontaneously attracted to. So this is connected to what I want to say, is that in this sense, I am spontaneously negative, which means evil. Not always. It's an aspect, but I can be very negative for others because I live in abstractions and universality. I think like a scientist. That's my Othin aspect, knowledge, science, etc. And I've understood that it can appear negative to others, and I try to fix this, but not to the point of becoming a hypocrite. I will not suddenly pretend that I'm interested in the singular life of many others, because I am not. And in this sense, I know that Caroline, Stella, and Scarlett, and Marie as well, and those that I call the European goddesses, you are the few exceptions in the sense that genuinely I am spontaneously attracted. I wouldn't say that I'm absolutely fascinated. Stella and Caroline, partly I am, but I would be genuinely interested in hearing about your personal life. Because your ideas, which are universal, they are great. They are the best ideas. That's why you are goddesses. But I'm also interested in your personal aspect. That's partly my stalker aspect, namely that it's not that I've partly done this with Stella a few years ago, but I'm not a stalker consciously, but simply, Caroline, I talk to you. When you reveal personal information about you, sorry, but I'm interested. Yeah, that's kind of creepy, but that's the problem of the internet age. I'll talk about this just a little bit later, but yeah, so that's, yeah, I will talk about this. No, I will talk about this now. Yeah. What people do not understand is that when they speak on the internet, it becomes public. And there are a lot of young people, mostly women, who share their life, the vlog as they call this, their daily life. But they do not realize that anyone can have access to this information. I understood this 4 years ago. That's why when you speak on the internet, you have to be willing to stand for what you say. The stupid things, the errors, the mistakes, etc. That's why it's very difficult to be responsible. And here I talk to you, Caroline. I understood this thanks to you and Stella. Women, when they speak on the internet, they are really different from men in the sense that they speak, but they do not realize that it goes on the web, it gets tied to the web, and then you have to be willing to take responsibility for what you've said. And women, they are not like men in the sense that it's much more difficult, actually it's impossible, for a woman to accept the full responsibility for what she said. Women, that's a little bit of my metaphysical, Evolian, Weinigerian self. There is an ontological distinction. Men have to be more responsible. And women, they when they are challenged to some level, they will retreat and say, okay, I regret, or I didn't say this. They will be under more pressure. They can stand the pressure. And Carolyn, you have been admirable, but there comes a limit inherent in women. And this is where men are stronger metaphysically. And I know that you have suffered for many years of your life of the pressure that what you said publicly has caused you. And Stella did the same. Namely, I take the example of Stella. I know that she published a video where she talks about some radical political views. It goes on the internet. She said this when she was 15 and 16. Namely, she was immature, irresponsible, but she expressed very radical ideas. And it will stick with her for the rest of her life. And for, in a chronological perspective, let us imagine that Stella has children with another man. Be careful, I might be a little bit pissed off. That's a joke. No, but it will stick to her for the rest of her life, and on her children, and on her grandchildren, etc., until as long as there is technology. When young women, here I'm talking about women and politics. It concerns Stella and Caroline in this sense, but all the women who got involved in right-wing politics, etc., etc. Or all the women who, it works for the feminists who express really stupid feminist ideas, they will have to stick with what they said for the rest of their life. And in 10 generations from now, let us imagine, it's just imagination, that 10 generations from now, their great-great-great-grandchildren, they will be reminded in school, the educational system will long have been abolished by then, but let us imagine, that's just a theoretical construct. They will be harassed and say, your great-great-great-grandmother, she was a whore, or she was a Nazi. That's even worse. No, by then either white people would have disappeared, or the 1000-Jähriges Reich would have been implemented. That's a joke. That's really a joke. It's not to be taken seriously. No, but very seriously, the internet age means that bad reputation, which is bad for everyone, but it's much more difficult to stand and to carry the burden for women. Bad reputation sticks to you as long as there is technology. This is a problem that you suffer from, Caroline, and that Stella suffers from, and that a lot of women suffer from. Now let us talk about pornography. Because here I talked about politics, but women who post pictures of them naked or revenge porn, they make a porn video with their boyfriend when they are young, but then it will stick to them for the rest of their life. They will have to justify this in front of their future husband and their children, etc., etc. Their reputation will stick to them for the rest of their life, and they will be haunted by this. And I understand you very well, Caroline, because you think that, I don't know what the psychological reason is for you going to Antarctica, but you will not escape the things that you say by going to Antarctica. You cannot become anonymous on the internet. That's why we live in an age of revelation, and that's why the Great Reset, I don't know what people think it is, because I don't know myself fully what it is, but it's partly a good aspect, because there is a lot of data about everyone which has to be cleaned. There are a lot of people who have a bad reputation, either for political or moral reasons, and it has to be erased, not by deleting the data, but by simply restructuring the cosmos. And here, a very easy way to manipulate people, that's the truth, and the truth as a whole, and the whole and the parts. If you take one aspect of a person, of an entire life, just one moment, and you predicate this to the person, it's very easy to ruin a reputation. Here I'll take an example. I encountered an empirical person who wore a Burzum sweatshirt. Burzum is the rock band by Varg. And I had the opportunity to talk briefly to the person. Do you know Varg Vikernes? And she said, yeah, I know the music band. And she said to me, he's the guy who killed another person. Yeah, that's true. But if you reduce Varg to the guy who killed a person when he was, I don't know, 19, it's profoundly unfair, because you take one event. Of course it happened, but you take one event. I don't even know how it happened, because I'm not interested here in the biographical data, but you take one event and you predicate this to a person who is, I don't know how old Varg is, but who is probably in his 40s or 50s, and who has traveled and developed so much. That's really manipulation in a negative sense. People have a right to clean their own problems, and the truth really is the totality, is the whole, it's the process. And to say that, Caroline, you said you made a few controversial tweets, this kind of manipulation, I understand manipulation. This is how you ruin political careers, because if you have one mistake you made 2 decades ago, it will haunt you for the rest of your life within the current context of the political and media system. And this is profoundly unfair, and it works for leftists as well. Leftists who say embarrassing things, a leftist leader who beat up his wife. Of course it's wrong to beat up your wife, but if you have one moment of insanity and you become violent against your wife, of course you are a monster, and then the Me Too movement, etc. Okay, but here I will be, in my good Christian self, forgiveness, etc. You make one mistake in a moment of heated excesses, and it will haunt you for the rest of your life. You will be disavowed, you will be rejected, etc. It's not fair. I mean, there are some, here really I speak for others. There are aspects about me which are really negative, and it's very difficult to find forgiveness. But I'm talking about ordinary sins for others. It's not fair to live in a world where you make one mistake and potentially the entire world knows, and you will be haunted for the rest of your life. So when people think about the Great Reset, I don't know what they envision, but it partly, these are not the current elites which will make the Great Reset. No, it's the spiritual elite of the world which will reset the cosmos, maybe, because just for this simple, there are countless other reasons, but just for this simple reason, namely that whatever people do sticks to them, for the negative aspect, for the positive as well. And here, Caroline, don't worry, precisely because here I'm really being honest and intelligent. I know that you are a good person. When you say, I defend ethnoculture for all peoples, that's good universality, and you are sincere, and that you are authentic, and you are a good person, because at some moment, all the people of the world, they will be able to watch what you said, and they will say, she really cares about all other peoples, but not in a hypocritical leftist sense. She can only care about all cultures because she genuinely cares about her own culture. That's real universality for the mediation of the particular. If you pretend to love everyone, but if you don't love your own particular group, be it the country or the civilization or the race or the culture or whatever, if you pretend to love everyone, but if you do not love what is most specifically your own, you are being a hypocrite. And he said, you are not a hypocrite, Caroline, because I know that you genuinely care about Europe, and because you love Europe genuinely, you can understand that others might love their own culture or their own ethnic group genuinely as well. And this is the way to solve the problems. This is real universality, which is not abstract universality, but a universality which has been mediated by its particularization. That's why you are neither a leftist nor a right-winger, Caroline. The leftists, they promote, the white leftist predominantly, they promote the moment of universality without the particular. We love all humans, but we hate white people. This is what white leftists implicitly say. And the right-wingers, they say, we love white people, but we don't care about all other humans. So the leftists, they have universal without the particular. The right-wingers, they have the particular without the universal. But both are correct and wrong at the same time, because the truth is neither one nor the other, but the unity of both. That's the philosophy of Hegel explained in a nutshell. And that's why you are beyond left and right. Although you are both a leftist for the good aspect and a right-winger for the good aspect, that's what you are perfect, Caroline. That's why I love you so much, because I have good taste. I love you, Caroline. I'm in a good mood. I might not always be in such a good mood. Enjoy while you can. If it lasts very long, you can enjoy it for very long. It's up to you. I don't know. But maybe you will hear about me at some moment and you will say, well, he's not as bad as I thought he would be. Yeah. Yeah, so that was for the Great Reset. And in a sense, I'm the person who understands this, but I understood this vaguely by the moment I started making videos. It was June or May or June 2019. But actually, I lost myself in too much complexity. I have to come back down while not giving up of my complexity, but making it more intelligible. There has to be a cosmic reset, because it's not possible in the long term to live in a society where every time a person makes a mistake, it sticks to them for the entirety of the rest of their life. Too much manipulation, too much. That's why I reveal everything about me, and people. I have constantly and consciously and constantly revealed very embarrassing things about myself, while thinking that others would have to use my own embarrassment against myself if I became too negative. But now my switch of perspective over the past few weeks and few months, I might say, is that I've come to a point where I've said to myself, but hey, I've been playing fair. I've revealed everything about me, and no one else, the other, they don't care, or they don't play by the same rules. Here I'm talking about all the others, especially the politicians, the people in power as of now. I play by the rules, by my own rules, but I am being honest, I am being aristocratic. I can trash talk myself, I've done this a lot, maybe I will do again, but I can also find good aspects about myself. I've been consistently honest, not completely, not with everyone, but I have revealed everything about me. Everything can be found on the internet in my videos. Of course, it's very difficult because I will have to take the responsibility for everything, but in everything there is not just negativity. That's what I've understood. So when I start taking responsibility for the good aspect, maybe I will become a little bit arrogant, or not. Maybe I will just be confident, and I will simply be confident, and that's part of my mindset. I will have a change of personality, not because of psychiatric reasons, partly that, but simply because I have reached a point where I say, okay, I have blamed myself for all the negativity of the world over the past 3 years of public communication in 2019 and 2022, but I have improved on a personal level. I will show my documents. I have improved on a personal level tremendously. I have worked on myself. I still have a lot of work to do. I still have to improve a lot, but I have improved in many ways. I am becoming better. I am becoming genuinely better. I'm not good because in a grand scheme of things, I am responsible for all the negativity. But the negative doesn't come without the positive. So when I start thinking positive thought about myself, be careful, because I might become good. Who knows? Yeah. Yeah, so what I wrote. Yeah. Also, I wrote this. There are, in terms of, I wouldn't say sexual interest, erotic interest. Eros is a Greek god, so not sexual, but erotic interest. Love in a sense of male versus female. Love in the sense of attraction. Yeah, there are various kinds of love. Love for the parents, love for the friends, love for the children, love for the friends, the colleagues, love for the fellow man, a love for the ethnic group, a love for the cultural group, a love for the whole of mankind. There are various kinds of love, but love in the sense of erotic, which doesn't mean it's partly tied with sex, but love for a young man a young man for a young woman. You are not that young, Caroline. You are becoming a little bit old, but don't worry, I love you nonetheless. Maybe if you hear about me, you will enjoy my sense of humor. Yeah, so you are still young, Caroline. You are forever young because you are how do you call this? Youth fountain? Is that what you call this? well, your best self is forever young, Caroline. Don't worry. Yeah, so I've written on erotic is not the proper term, but in terms of attraction, there are only 3 women that I'm interested in the entire world: Scarlett, Caroline, Stella. In a sense, I am very demanding. I have very high standards. I only want the best. Me too. Very funny, these women. That's why we are all single, we'd say the women, because the best, where are they? We are seeking for the best men, where are they? I don't know. We'll see that later. Yeah, so whatever I am, that's my problem. I am. There are only 3 women who arouse interest in the I will say the word erotic, in a sense that it's not physical. Not yet. That's a joke. But in a sense that here I will speak about myself as a singular individual. A little bit of narcissism. I have a specificity that, because I haven't succeeded in talking to anyone who vaguely understands what I say over the past many years. I don't know how others function, but in case of women, of course there's the physical attraction for beautiful, young, predominantly European, which means anthropological European, for healthy, young, attractive, predominantly European women, of course. But in my personal life and in my intellectual life, in my entire life actually, I have very rarely been attracted by women who are just physically attractive. I can be aroused sexually because it's really attraction on a basic instinctive level, but attraction in a most noble sense, I mean arousal of really high interest, it comes with personality for women, in the sense that a woman, no matter how beautiful she might be, if she is really boring and has a bland personality, I am not interested. Then I know I'm intelligent enough to know that the personality of a woman partly depends on the personality of her man. It's the role of a man to awaken the best aspect of the personality of his woman, etc. Okay. But a woman who is spontaneously intelligent, charismatic, funny, emotional, in a good sense, balanced, or a little bit excessive, but for the good aspect, I am spontaneously attracted. And in this sense, Caroline, Stella, and Scarlett, you are the most charismatic women. You are European goddesses. What did you expect? Yeah, but in this sense, I speak personally. I understood this in 2018 when I discovered Stella. I always fall in love with the same woman. My teenage sweetheart. I always fall for the same woman. That's why I know that there's only one woman. That's what European mythology says, the archetypes, etc. But this woman evolves over time, in a sense that Caroline, I imagine that I'm talking to you. You are, of course, you are partly similar in the fundamental determination because you are charismatic, funny, you are, you have a good personality. You are a little bit. There's a little fight in you. You are a little bit rebellious for the good. Hopefully for the good. Yeah. Intelligence. Well, it's a specific feature of you and very few other women. But yeah, I'm not saying that the girl that I loved when I was a teenager was not intelligent, but she was. I was not intelligent either. I mean, abstractly, yes, but intelligence was not a fundamental determination of the relationship. But you add intelligence, but otherwise, personality, charisma, humor, kindness, sweetness, also a rebellious aspect. There's only one woman that I constantly fall in love with. Now it has crystallized itself, the archetype, in the 3 women that I mentioned: Stella, Caroline, Scarlett. Yeah. So in this sense, I really don't understand a lot about male and female relationship, because there are many women who may be very attractive, have a hot body, but they are really boring. And of course they are sexually attractive, but if they are boring. And then there are women who are a little bit less attractive physically, and here I will be honest, I will not pretend that the 3 women that I've listed, they are 9 out of 10s. When in your best moment, you look good, Caroline, Stella as well, Scarlett as well. You all look good, but it's not 9 or 10 out of 10. You look good, you look good. But you look good and you have a wonderful personality. Yeah, there are women who are not very good looking, but with an interesting personality. And paradoxically, they are kind of more interesting. It's rare, it's statistically rare, but yeah. So that's one of the mystery of the male-female relationship. Also, what did I write? Also, here we'll talk briefly because the video is already too long. I will try to limit to less than 3 hours. About conspiracies. I've understood this recently by watching Jean Robin. I already knew this to be true for Michael, Carolyn, partly Dr. Deep State, but actually the people who are the most intelligent, the people that I consider to be the best intellectually, they think in terms of conspiracy and controlled opposition and that. So in a way they are right, but this view, which is correct spiritually, it leads to insanity and madness. In a sense, the people that I have recognized, and in a way that I identify with the most intelligent, the most brilliant, I'm not boasting, it's simply that I've recognized my spirit in the intellectual elite of the world, but they all share in common what I call conspiratorial madness, which is true, but when people, they start seeing conspiracies everywhere, they become insane, in a way. That's why, here, that's again the tragedy of God, my tragedy, that there is a select minority of very intelligent people, which come from the bottom in terms of sociological status. It means people who have grown on their own by studying on their own. The European gods and goddesses, plus the people that have listed, Jean Robin, Dr. Deep State, they are self-taught in a way. And you are the intellectual elite of the world. Because you are self-taught, you do not receive, partly, but you do not receive knowledge from upward, you build knowledge from down up to the top. That's a self-reconstructing process, with the help of the Spirit of God sometimes, but it's nonetheless a self-reconstructing process. But I know how you think broadly, because this is how I have thought, that the elites, whether these are the Jews, the reptilians, the Freemasons, the Catholics, the Romans, the families, the elite families, the communists, whatever the Illuminati. I'm not accusing the people that I mentioned of talking about the Illuminati, but whatever the elites are supposed to be, for whoever thinks about conspiracy, whatever the elites are, to think that they can plan decades in advance, centuries in advance, that they can anticipate world events centuries in advance, it's complete nonsense. In a sense that reality is so complex, it moves so fast, that it's impossible to think even a few days or a few weeks in advance. Because the reality, which is made manifest through the internet, there is so much information, it goes so fast, there is not only the movement of, here I would call it the physical world, the empirical world, but there's also the movement of consciousness, how people react to the changes in the empirical world. A change of demographics, a change of economic policy or economic context, a change of technological change, it brings about a change of consciousness. People react to this new occurrence, and their change of consciousness affects their behavior, which change the condition. It's an inter-reciprocal web of interaction, and here web doesn't mean the internet, it's interconnectedness of do we see? Yeah. To think about a society in real time, the infinite complexity that it contains, it's infinitely complex, but to envision that the elites, whoever you think they are, might be able to plan decades or centuries in advance, it's nonsense. Here it's really advanced level of thinking, because actually what happens, here I speak, it will not be intelligible, it's retroactive. This is the way God thinks. That's called Wechselwirkung. The plans or the schemings or the prophecies, they are partly true, not because they are from the past and they unfold in the future, but because the present is the way it is, and it retroactively projects back the accuracy of the plans, the prophecies, the predictions, etc., etc. Here it's really advanced thinking. It's so complex that this is the kind of thinking that I've tried to give up on as of now, because I have to lower down the standards for others and for myself as of now in order to be more stabilized. But yeah, I just say that to believe that the elites of the 13th century or under Charlemagne, that's what you believe, Caroline, that's what you believe, Michael, or even the communist elite, that's what you believe, Jean, or the intellectual elite, Mr. Douglas, Dr. Deep State, to believe that the elites, they can plan decades, or of course there are broad tendencies, but to believe that every event is planned, in the sense, the anti-conspiracy people who are naive, they are genuine. The conspiracy theorists, they are genuine as well, but the truth is the unity of both. The truth is, to believe that everything is planned centuries in advance, it's way too complex. That's really a retroactive projection of the current understanding of things, which is being retroactively predicated to the past. That's Wechselwirkung. Zizek talks about this, and here really to believe that all the major world events are planned in advance by elites, they are not. And if they are, it's because these elites are gods. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. That's why, of course, thinking about the conspiracy or the conspiracies is smart in a sense, but there comes a moment when it becomes too complex, and in this sense, I say what I say. I explain what I said earlier. When I said to you, Michael, I want to hurt you, I have explained already, but I can explain even more in the sense that the people who are super smart in this world, the European gods and goddesses, plus the names that I've listed, who are interested in politics, because they are also the super smart, who avoid politics, someone like Footnotes to Plato, Matthew Seagal, he's super smart, David Thomas Wisdom, he's super smart, but they are not interested in politics. So their intelligence is a blessing, partly, without the curse, and all the others who have to deal and to battle with politics and geopolitics, etc., your intelligence, your divine intelligence, your spiritual intelligence is a blessing, but also a curse. The blessing is that you are super smart, you understand pretty much everything, you are eloquent, you express yourself well, and you will become successful, but I'm not sure that success is a reward, not always. All the great artists, they talk about the imprisonment of being famous, Marshall Mathers mostly. But yeah, in a sense that I have already hurt you unconsciously, because your life is already difficult. Not physically always, although there can be difficult physical conditions, but intellectually, I know that you have suffered, and you still do, and you will still suffer because of what you are, because I do as well. And here it's not conscious in a sense that there have to be people who are really smarter, and at some level, intelligence really causes suffering. Not only, but it causes suffering, because to see things really through the perspective of intelligence and rationality, in some moments it's really hurtful. And sometimes, that's why they say ignorance is bliss. To be sometimes an innocent, idiotic, stupid person, it's really not derogatory. It's just the joy of innocence, in a sense of not having to battle with the complexity of the world, and to be joyfully present in the world. That's childlike innocence. Carolyn, you talk about this. You said you had your higher self when you were a teenager. You were not. You were innocent. I was as well. That's how I envision things. Every human, in a sense, there is a moment of innocence, of joyful innocence, namely just to wonder at the world. Here I am talking about intellectual innocence, the kind of joy that affected collective, Thomas David Wisdom, or footnotes to Plato, the wonder at the world, the marvel, not the Marvel movies with the European gods, with Odin and Thor, etc., and Poseidon. Not the Marvel movies, but to marvel at the world, to be amazed at the world. This is a kind of innocence that I will try to re-establish. That's what I call cosmotheism in my perspective. Maybe I want at some moment people, whether I am physically present or not, to just be able to marvel at the world. But it requires politics to have been abolished. That's why I'm a libertarian and a Marxist, a communist, because I want to abolish politics just so that people can have the opportunity to marvel at the world, which is the creation of God, without having to go into insanity with the conspiracy, etc., etc. So in a sense, the smart people, that's the myth of Odin, the smart people, they really suffer because of an excess of intelligence. And in this sense, you are the people that I love the most, but I have already unconsciously cursed you because you are super smart. So you see things in a bitter perspective sometimes, and yeah, that's what I could say. That's why here it's not that I justify, maybe I do, deception and lying, but sometimes being deceived, if it enables not to be constantly paranoid and anxious and tormented and to constantly suffer like I have and I still do and I still will when it happens to me, I don't want that for others. Not constantly, not all the others. It's because here I will be honest, it's painful to say, but when I look at the world through the lens of pure intellect, I become very cynical. That's how I became evil in my intellectual development in early January 2018. I did not consciously become evil, but simply I was confronted by, I've already said it, by negativity, which was just a rationalistic approach of the world. And this is the kind of negativity that I unconsciously project onto others, namely to reduce people to their pure universality, to say to people, you are just a statistic. It enables to understand, but it's reductionism which leaves away the spontaneous aspect, and this is what people genuinely reject about intelligence and about my intelligence eventually, some aspect of it, and this is really I've understood this recently. Because here I will just illustrate. The people who understand that democracy in the modern version is kind of fake, the both sides, they are on the same team, etc. When you understand this, you become smarter. You will stop wasting your time watching political debates and wasting your time and your money and your investment of emotions and intelligence, etc. But when you say to someone, it's just a simple example, someone who has spent decades of his life advocating for a noble cause, when you say, but the entire political system is corrupt, not morally, it partly is, but is corrupt in its very structure, in the sense that only the young generation who has grown up with the internet can discover that democracy and politics is a waste of time. When you say to someone who has been a genuine, authentic, honest politician I'm not sure that politician can be used in a good sense, but let us say someone like Ron Paul. Ron Paul has done politics, but he is smart enough to understand that the system is corrupt. But if you say to the people who have been dedicating a significant aspect of their life to doing politics for the good, whether they are from the left or for the right, if you say, but politics in a democratic form, it's a bad joke, it ruins what they have had attachment to for the good. If you make a bad deception disappear, that's liberating. But what if you make a deception disappear which has been good? It kind of hurts the people that you don't want to hurt. So that's part of the problem. But eventually people will have to know the truth. Democracy, and here that's my faith in intelligence. One might say people, if they are really honest and dedicated, it means that they are intelligent. I mean, there can be simple-minded people who are dedicated as well, but people who invest for decades in politics for a noble cause, when they realize, okay, politics in the modern world has been a deception, they can live peacefully with this, because they will say, okay, now for the remaining of my life, I will have the opportunity to get interested in other things. But yeah, so that's the problem I have with politics. I've understood very quickly that that's the teaching from Varg. There is no political solution, because politics itself is the problem. That's why I'm a libertarian. Not always, but I try to find balance by being a libertarian and a communist in the name of German nationalism and the American ideal. That's my very complex political view, which is actually kind of simple, but German nationalism, American ethics, and in the middle, the unity of both is libertarianism and communism, not the Stalinist type of communism, but simply, here the libertarians, they are intelligent, that by its very nature, libertarianism produces wealth and technological development. For instance, the internet, and the internet by its very nature is a communist tool, because everything becomes public property. So that's the unity, that's one aspect of the unity between libertarianism and communism. Yeah, so because both the genuine communists, they are not only manipulators within the communists. The genuine, authentic, good-hearted, noble communists, they want to abolish politics, not by implementing a totalitarian bureaucracy, but by liberating the workers. And the libertarians, they want the same. That's why both are anarchists in the good sense. And the purpose of mankind, as long as there is politics, the political purpose is to abolish politics. Not in a Stalinist, Maoist way, but in a liberating way, in a Christian way. Here it's Christian anarchy. By liberating the workers. Here I will not pretend, I'm on the side of the workers, but simply, if I'm good at, and I'm partly good, I want the good that I have had for myself, I want it for others as well. What I have called good over the past few years of my life means watching good videos and reading good books, and I want others to be able to do so, and if they are not interested while given the opportunity, if they prefer to do something else, okay, I don't care, but at least give them the opportunity. That's the conscious plan that I will try to implement. Yeah. Yeah, and also I will just say I've written it. There are many problems for me and for others. Basically, Carolyn and Michael and all the others who will recognize themselves as European gods. You are gods. I explain, if it's not clear after 3 hours of talking almost, because you have gone through the entire process, you have studied yourself, you have studied the cosmos, the microcosm, the macrocosm, that's a hermetic process, that's an alchemical process, that's a process of self-discovery. You have recreated yourself in all the aspects, anthropology, psychology, economics, politics, religion, art, culture, philosophy, nature, logic, metaphysics. So you have a total knowledge of yourself, not fully on each aspect, but you have a full view. That's what makes you so smart, the European gods and goddesses. But we live in a moment where there is, as of now, there is kind of a contradiction between the current established set of legislation, what is called positive legislation. Positive doesn't mean good. It means that which is currently valid in effect, when I say. But positive law is the law which exists as such. And laws of power and dominance, etc. There's the current state of affair, one might say. But then I am smart enough to have understood the process, the revelation of truth that I talk about in the beginning, intensity extension. So we live here. It's kind of I don't know what word to use. It's partly comical that the European gods and goddesses, the most brilliant individuals, not only of the 21st century, but of all eternity, one might say. They are ordinary people. This is what they talk about in a lot of superhero movies, where the ordinary people they discover. Usually these are teenagers. You're no longer a teenager, Caroline, but you are still young in mind and soul and yeah. What was I saying? Yeah, so the teenagers who discover, oh, we have superpowers, etc. It will happen to you as well. The European gods and gods. Eventually, to many more humans, they will rediscover their divine self, and there is room for improvement. But I know that the hierarchy at the top is fixed, namely Michael, Stella, Hyperborea, and Caroline. You are the four, the elite, because I understand your process. You have gone through all the steps. You have the same intellectual, cultural, spiritual references. Yeah. And in the sense, you are the most like Odin. Here I talk about Hyperborean. I don't know a lot about you, but I know everything about you nonetheless, because you have a thirst for knowledge. You are here. Odin is the archetype which describes you, and Michael as well. I mean the quest for knowledge. That's the Odin aspect of God. There's also the Christian aspect. Christ would be the moral archetype. Odin would be the scientist archetype. I really simplify here. But eventually, the knowledge gathered by studying science brings about moral and ethical behavior. That's what I've been trying to do, and I will keep trying to do. I'm not always reliable in terms of morality. Yeah, but I try to improve. What do you want to say? Yeah, so there will be, I get weird situations where at some moment the people who are in charge, do you feel in charge? Your money and infrastructure have been important to now. Yeah. The people in charge, Mr. Putin, Mr. Biden, Mr. Xi Jinping, Mr. Macron, the leaders, they will realize, here it might be comical at some moment, that we live in a world where ordinary people who make very poor quality videos in terms of presentation. Because here I will make just a remark, a personal remark. My favorite videos that I found on the internet, usually they are simple videos where people talk normally with no editing. There are no images, no pictures, no sound, no signs, no music. Of course there is sound, but only voice. But no editing, no super effects. No, these are ordinary people talking. The videos that I've enjoyed the most, Michael, Caroline, Varg, when I used to watch his video a few years ago, Marie, Carol, Footnotes to Plato, the best videos, or Overthink, Ellie Anderson, some of the best videos They are just people talking in front of a camera, often with no editing whatsoever. They are the most interesting because the ideas are the most interesting. It's not enough. It's not because you start making videos where you talk normally that all of a sudden it becomes interesting, you know. But these people, they spontaneously, and the debates, the debates provided by Jean Robin, some of your videos, you imagine that you will watch this, Jean. Some of your videos, journalistic videos, they can be a little bit boring sometimes. They are good quality in terms of content, but it can be boring. But your debates, they are genuinely interesting because you are intelligent, and you in this sense, I admire you for your intelligence and your resilience. You are among the elites. You are one of the best as well. Yeah. So my favorite videos on the internet, except when I listen to music, but my favorite videos of intellectual or philosophical videos, these are the videos where people just talk ordinarily. And they have a very, very few quantitative success. One of the reasons is the complexity of the ideas developed, but also the formal aspect. But at some moment, yeah, the leaders of the world, they will realize, hey, but these peoples, the various peoples, I don't know how many, but actually, it's really... It's a pyramid. Oh, the Illuminati, the pyramid, I think about the conspiracy, the people who believe in conspiracy. Of course, there's a conspiracy, but who see symbols and images everywhere. Oh, the symbol, oh, the images. It can help, but actually, the people I consider to be the best, those that I've talked about in this video, they do not over-rely on the symbols. They talk about intellect. But to talk means to exteriorize the intellect, but they talk abstractly. Language, by its very definition, is abstract. Yeah. What I mean is, images are useless because if a good thought, a good content is intelligible, the content will be interesting, and one doesn't need to make a lecture. I have done lectures, and as long as I can, I will still make lectures, because sometimes there has to be a minimum formal presentation and preparation. But people who just spontaneously speak, in my view, these are the best. And here, that's why I have also a problem with a lot of humans, one might say. I can understand that people do not have the time, the interest, the leisure, the level of intelligence, or the education to be interested in this kind of content. I can understand when I'm in a calm mood. I understand. Then what I can do to change this, partly the frustration that I have by the fact that a lot of people are not spontaneously interested in what I consider to be genuinely interesting, namely people who speak about great ideas which are made available on the internet. Here I can make the people who make videos with a better formal presentation. These are really official scholars, someone like Lawrence Krauss or Mr. Hajlin or Mr. Dawkins or Peterson and Zizek. They are not always scholars. They also make ordinary conversation. But when they make more formally pleasing videos, it's still very, very heavily bent on the content. The formal presentation is to a minimum. Here I compare with a very complex video with a lot of editing. People have to insert jokes and editing. I make jokes sometimes, but here I'm talking about visual effects, etc. I don't blame them, but I have been partly frustrated by the fact that humans in general, when they have the leisure and access to the internet, they tend to spontaneously prefer the pure visuals and not the intellectual content. And if the conditions are changed and people are offered the opportunity to genuinely get interested in intelligent content, if they are genuinely not interested because one has to focus, there has to be an attention span, sometimes passages have to be... Here I'm not be careful everything I say, no, but sometimes that's what I do. When people express very profound thoughts, I watch the passage several times, not directly, but I rewatch the same video several times because I acquire a new perspective each time. And some videos are really worth studying. I have studied video from Carolyn, from Stella, of course, from Michael, from Dr. Deep State, from Footnotes to Plato. I have really studied some of your videos because they are genuinely fascinating. And what I want to say is that I wrote this briefly before making the video. I discovered a few days ago TikTok. I knew it existed. I did not really know what it was about. I watched TikTok for a few minutes, I might say. I've had enough time to watch many videos in a few minutes, but the very form of the medium, the form, namely to make very short videos between 15 seconds and 1 minute, that's what I've understood. It's like Twitter, actually. I've never been on Twitter, and I thought maybe I should start talking on Twitter, but no, because the very form is a hindrance to the expression of the content. In a sense, I have maybe the tendency to speak too much, too long sometimes, etc. But I genuinely think that when I say interesting things, it's worth, or anyone, when people have interesting things to say, it's worth sitting in front of your computer and listen to agree or disagree, contradict, refute, etc. But at least to sit and listen. I don't want people to do this for all of my videos or for my video, but simply I say that's what I do. When I find a good, interesting videos, I've had the leisure, the economic opportunity, the intelligence, etc. I know, but if people, they are given the opportunity, and if they are not spontaneously attracted by the prospect of just listening to the best ideas, here I'm talking about people like Peterson and Zizek, or Stephen Molyneux, or Dawkins, the public intellectuals of the 21st century internet age, before the European conspiracy for the assertion of the Nordic gods or the Greek gods. They are the same. The Nordic gods, what do they have better than the Greek gods? They are the same eventually, but maybe they are they can resist the cold. They are a little bit decadent in Greece. The heat of the sun, it has made them too soft. A little bit of northern coldness, it will toughen things up for the good. Yeah, no, this is the kind of thing that I say. Don't take this seriously, because here I'm just improvising completely. I don't know what the difference. I've read what Hegel said, but I agree. The Greek gods, they are more fully, specifically determined. The mythology is wealthier because it has been preserved here in a historical perspective. A Nordic mythology, it's more vague, more undetermined, but basically these are the same archetypes. Caroline, you are Freya, that's a Nordic goddess. Michael, you are Apollo. Not always, but in your best moment. The same goes for Caroline. In your best moment, you are Freya. That's why I'm attracted by you. What did you expect? Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, what was I saying? So, yeah, TikTok and Twitter. I don't want to be the judgmental, arrogant, aristocratic type who say, oh, modern decadence. But actually, I understand people, the sociological determination, etc. But people who are genuinely interested in watching very short videos because they do not have the attention span to sustain attention for a longer period of time and to think, even if they say, yeah, but because the educational system is broken, because we have a low IQ, because of the dysgenic policies implemented by the elites, etc. I don't know what people might say, but simply, if people, here, that's one of my problems. The attention span of humans. I understand why it is the way it is, but I try to improve nonetheless, because if people, the younger people, I understand, but people when they mature, if they really need colors, cartoons, pictures, a lot of sounds, a lot of effects, there has to be a joke every 30 seconds, a planned joke with a canned laughter, as Zizek called this. I don't know what to say. Yeah. So, I also wrote, I've been talking, in the videos in which I talk about you, Michael, I've said, you are the most intelligent man, the most intelligent individual outside of myself, etc., etc., it has aroused almost no reaction. And when you reacted, I screwed everything up by being too honest. But I have rewatched some of my videos, and I said to myself, but wait a minute. If I am intelligent, I'm partly intelligent. When I say you are the most intelligent, I really mean, not only I mean this, but I know you are. And Caroline, when I say you are the second most intelligent woman in the world, you are as well. There are other women who are more intelligent in terms of purely quantitative determination of IQ. There are women scholars, I don't know, mathematics or philosophy or sociology or whatever. And there are people, I will mention this. The European gods and goddesses, they are the most intelligent, but we, I speak as a community, we are not yet the wisest. With intelligent, wisdom has to come at some moment. So we are the most intelligent, but we have to become wise. There are people who are quantitatively limited in terms of intelligence, but who are kind of wise, and they are not knowledgeable, they are not educated, they are not quantitatively intelligent, but they are wise. And we, I speak for myself, but we have to become wise. You are already wise. You wiser than me, I will talk about this, but you are already partly wise, but we have to improve. That's here, I will be honest, that's when I say I want to hurt you, there's an aspect, it's simply I want you to be really the best of the best of the best, which means I am very demanding. That's one way of hurt, to be demanding with another, that's one way of hurting the other, but for the good. I want you to be the very best, you are already the best, but to be even better than... better than the best. I don't know what to say. Yeah, so yeah, I by listening to myself talking, because at this moment no one watches my video. There's one or two person who have started watching my most recent video and replying, but no one reacts to my videos. So I've started to watch my own videos, and I've said, but wait a minute, if Apollonian Germ, Michael, if you really are the smartest, I would better have to watch your video, which I already did spontaneously, but I do this now. I have stopped for a while because I've tried to reconnect with a more singular empirical life, but I've started watching your own videos and to draw wisdom and advice and intelligence. And the more I watch your videos, the more I convince myself that you are the best, because here I will praise spontaneously, but that's what I think. Your videos, you produce good video, great videos in a very difficult context, namely sitting in your car for 15 minutes while going to work. You speak the content of your mind, and it's brilliant. That's what I thought yesterday. You are a genius, not because you have achieved a work of genius like Newton, Darwin, or Da Vinci, etc., but in a way, at some moment, you are better. Here, let's not. But at some level, it's not fully clear. But because there's too much light, it turns into the opposite of clear because it's too brilliant. But at some level, you are really not a European god, but you are the best European god of light outside of myself. You really are the best. And the ability that you have of producing amazing intellectual content, intelligent, lucid, relevant, interesting, apropos. I've rewatched your videos in chronological order. The ability that you have to speak brilliantly in difficult conditions, and so driving your car without thinking too much, it's amazing. The same goes for Caroline when you make your long live streams. For me, almost everything is interesting, even the snails. a Jean. I've watched a debate of you recently. If I have to be honest, you are very good, but you are not quite on the level of what I call the European gods, but you are very good as well. And your ability to talk in an interesting way about many topics, I admire this as well. Yeah. And yeah, so in this sense, you are rough diamonds. I'm the diamond in the dust that hasn't been found. I'm the underground king that hasn't been crowned. That's 50 Cent, Many Men. Yeah. Yeah. And now I just conclude. I've just drawn a picture. Do I have to draw this? No. If people have watched more than 3 hours, they can focus their time span, or attention span. I don't need to draw the picture, but basically, the way I envision myself as of now, when I look at others, not physically with my eyes, but look when I consider other, there are 3 levels. There are the people that I look up to, people that I admire and that I draw inspiration from, and I search wisdom. I try to draw inspiration and wisdom from them. So I look up to them, and it can be either in terms of intelligence, or here I will just use the 2 categories of intelligence and will. Intelligence is the intellect, the mind, the knowledge. Will is ethics, behavior, morality. And wisdom is probably the unity of both. There are of course a lot of people that I look up to because on a personal level I am still partly immature, irresponsible. I have many problems. I'm not even talking about the moral problems, but here just in terms of maturity or lack of maturity and lack of responsibility. And in this sense I can look up as admiration to all sorts of people. In terms of intellect, of course, when I say I can be the smartest in terms of global intelligence, in any specific field, every person who has a diploma from a vaguely serious college or university, he knows more about me. In the sense, our community of the intelligent people that I've been talking about, with the exception of footnotes to Plato and Overthink, partly Michael with your PhD, not PhD, your how do you call this? Your diploma in philosophy. Philosophy is not supposed to be a discipline in which you get diplomas. That's just formal. Yeah, but we share in common an unusual path. Here I think about Varg, Marie, Carol, Hyperboreans, Caroline partly as well, I don't know exactly, but people, or Stella, with no formal education or a limited formal education in comparison with the intellectual standards that you produce. So yeah, so of course I can look up, here I sometimes I make jokes about Mr. Dawkins and Mr. Krauss, but of course in their field I'm perfectly well aware that they are much more competent than I am empirically, of course. So I can look up to intelligent people of all fields, because every specialist, if he's competent, he's more competent than I am on an individual level, because he has devoted his intellectual career to studying his or her own specific field of inquiry. Yeah, but then of course there are many people that I look up to in terms of wisdom, and here it can be people from all layers of society, all sociological background. I just take an example. I've encountered a person living next to me empirically who has had an accident and his body is partly disabled. He lives in a disabled body, which causes him suffering, but he's strong in character in a sense that he can barely move his hand. His body is partly disabled, but he has a positive outlook on life and he's strong in character. And I admire him, although he's a probably very low IQ, working class, an old person with no status, but I admire him because he has had a very difficult life physically, and he is always positive, and I admire this. In this sense, I can admire people who are very limited cognitively, but who are worthy of admiration for their strength or their character. In the sense, I'm just a normal, intelligent person. Yeah. So these are the people that I look up to. And here I talk to you, Michael and Carolyn. When I look up towards you, I look up to you as Americans, because for me, the ideal of an American is the competent person. Competent, responsible, autonomous, self-reliant. And in the sense, you are partly, I would say, American heroes. You are not the most American of my American heroes. That would be Charles Murray, Ron Paul, Jeff Deist, Daisy Luther, Thomas Sowell, and all the competent Americans. Especially here, the anonymous heroes of the 19th century, as I envision, those who built America, the settlers, the colonists, those who, the explorers. These are the people that, when I sometimes speak about the American mindset, these are the explorers, the people who went into the wild with very few resources, but their will to discover and their courage, and who build what would later, in a matter of a few decades, here I'm talking about the westward expansion in the 19th century, what would in a few decades or a century become the greatest superpower the world had ever seen. So the pioneers, these are the Americans maybe that I admire the most, although I don't know the names of any of them. I call this the Jack London mentality. Of course, Jack London is early 20th century, but as I envision this, the early settlers and pioneers and etc. Yeah, and because America is so vast that there is, I talk about this very often, that there is the America of the Pilgrims and the Founding Fathers. No, the America of the Pilgrims, the America of the Founding Fathers, the revolutionaries and the Founding Fathers of the Constitution, and the founders of America as an institutional country. Then there are the explorers. It's partly from the early settlers up until the end of the 19th century, the westward expansion. It begins in the east. So there are the explorers. That's another aspect. Then there are the self-reliant, autonomous yeomen, as you call this, the farmers, which have settled, and I still envision being autonomous. That, in my view, in my chronological perspective, that's second half of the 19th century, when the early pioneers, they do not all go to California to get gold. They settle and they become autonomous. That's what I call a healthy, autonomous lifestyle, etc. That, in my perspective, of course, it has existed since the 17th century, and it still exists today, but in my perspective, that's predominantly in the 19th century. Then there are the affluent Americans, starting in the 1920s up until the 1950s. Really, these are the competent, confident, creative business Americans, America which becomes a world superpower in economics, military, culture, influence, etc. And then since between the 1950s and the 1980s, there are the America at the peak of its global cultural influence, etc. The Western movies, cowboy movies, TV shows, etc., etc. But it begins to decline morally, religiously, etc. And then there's modern America. I'm not laughing at America, but I'm laughing because it's the result of 60 years of decline. But the result of 60 years of decline, it's still far above any other current country in the 21st century in terms of competence, creativity, dominance at all levels. So even an America, I mean, it's obvious, but an America which has been declining for 60 years, it's still above everyone else. I have this in mind. The Last One Standing, the song by Eminem, Bitch, I've got the clouds beneath me. Yeah. Even when America declines, it's still above everyone else. So yeah, my American heroes, as I envision them, I have many American heroes, but they are mostly Jefferson. I don't know a lot about Jefferson, but I get the idea, as I call this. But the pioneers, the settlers, and the independent, competent, self-reliant people of the 19th century. But then I have the modern remnants of the great Americans of the past, they are those that I call Ron Paul, Charles Murray, Thomas Sowell, Daisy Luther, Jeff Dye. Namely, the modern Americans who have still the greatest aspect of America downloaded in their mind. Yeah. But you, Caroline and Michael, you are also, because of your empirical history, you are also partly American. In this sense, I look up at you as Americans, as role models for your American aspect, sometimes. Because in the sense, here I will be a little bit trash talking towards the French, but I'm willing to say this to the French because it's an aspect of myself. But really, the American and the French, they are really opposed in a sense of whatever is considered good in America is considered bad in France. Here I talk about continental France. I do not identify as a Frenchman. It's an aspect of me. But if I have to identify as the member of a nation, my nation is Germany. America for me is not a nation. It's an institutional country. There is no there is no American nation as such. Because nation for me means ties of blood, and of course there are ties of blood. I will not make a lecture on the history of America, but there are ties of blood in America, but between white people. And then there are the Irish and the Italians and the Poles, etc. And then there are the Asians and the Jews, and there were the blacks, etc. So it's a multi-ethnic, it has been a multi-ethnic nation, but I will not, you get the idea. What I mean is, I will simplify what American nationalism for me doesn't mean any. It makes no sense because there is no American nation as such. American nationalism, because of the specificity of America, is patriotism, which means the Constitution. I simplify to the utmost. Protestant work ethic, libertarianism, and the Constitution. I simplify to the utmost. So in the sense, my nation is Germany, but I am partly French culturally and legislatively, etc. But in the sense, America and France as archetypes, they are opposed. In the sense, whatever is considered to be good in America is considered to be bad in France, and the opposite is true as well. Competence, autonomy, self-reliance, success, ambition, character, strength, it's considered to be evil in a French perspective. It's considered to be good in the American perspective, even if it is becoming criticized more and more, but whatever is considered healthy in America is considered sick in France. To be dependent on the state, it's considered to be a virtue in France. To be poor, it's considered to be a virtue. To be a worker, to be a worker in a sense of the French, they think worker in terms of opposed to the CEO or the boss, and the worker is oppressed, and the owner of the factory, the business, the company is an oppressor. So the entrepreneurs, they are, here I caricature a little bit, but it's partly true. The entrepreneurs, they are considered to be evil in a French perspective. In America, they were supposed to be, and still partly are, considered to be good. So here really, here I partly have a cultural French perspective in the realm of economics, and in the sense you are Americans and your perspective just on this very limited topic of economics, you are completely different, and I draw inspiration from you because the French mentality, Then there are the people that I look at as equals. So there are those that I look up towards, those that I look at like equals, and when I think seriously intellectually, there are very few people that I can look at in terms of intellectual equals, because when I speak seriously intellectually, I am not an expert in any field, but I have my global view. And if I really decide to be, but I will try not to do this because it's, when I seek intellectual peers to compete with, that's partly of my competitive aspect that Mr. Peterson talks about. Very intelligent people, they need some sort of competitors. And in a sense, I look at you, the people that I've been talking about in this video, because you are the only ones who can keep up the pace if I really talk, I mean, maybe I can have failures because there are really specific topics in which I'm ignorant, but my global perspective, when I start to talk about philosophy seriously, about my categories, etc., Michael, I think you are the only one who could keep up the pace. But the pace, I try to slow down the pace, but sometimes it goes too fast that it hurts my mind. I have had headaches just by thinking, physical headaches, when I start to think. Sometimes it's really painful. It could be worse, but I've experienced physical pain due to the activity of my brain, basically. So yeah, and in this sense, the people, the European gods, you are my equals, and this is when I look at a man as an equal. Here I explain what it means. Here I explain what the word equal means. I look him as either as a friend or as a potential competitor. And when I look at as a woman as an equal, in this specific limited sense, here I think about Caroline, Stella, and Scarlett, this means attraction. I wrote love and war, Venus and Mars. But war, the purpose of war is to conquer, it's not to mindlessly kill. So yeah, that's why I can be consciously maybe negative, because I want to find competitors. Why? Because it's an aspect of me. I want to compete with others that can sustain the challenge in a way. Yeah. But also I imagine thinking of you as friends. Michael, I've said that you are my best friend. But I am a process. I have contradictions. I have conflicts within me. I have psychiatric problems, which are derived from philosophical problems. It's not the other way around. Or maybe it is. No. It's philosophy. Yeah. And then there are the people that I look downward. It can be in an arrogant or simply sometimes in just a normal way. There are people that I look down to, and here, when I'm really honest, the people that I allow myself to look down in a derogatory way, these are people who have a status and high quantitative intelligence, in the sense that I am not stupid enough to... I have been partly, but it's not very dominant in me. I am not... I can be arrogant and very stupid, but I'm intelligent enough not to be arrogant against the majority of ordinary people. And if I do, I know that it's wrong, but I can be arrogant against people who think that they are in charge and that they have power or prestige, whereas actually they don't. I can be very negative against them. Do you feel in charge? In the sense that intellectuals, I can look down on them in a derogatory way in thinking for myself. You think that what you say is of any sort of interest because you have sold a few books, but no. What your production, if you compare this to, I usually think about Western intellectuals. If you compare this to what was done in the 19th century, in the 18th century, 17th century, classical antiquity, what you produce, it's really mediocrity. I'm being nice. In the sense, I can be arrogant against people, but people who think that they have a status, and actually they do, but they do have a status in a system which is corrupt at many levels. So I can look down in this perspective, but also I can look down onto others with a paternalist aspect, in the sense when I think of others as being my children, I look down on them, and here I have either compassion or care for them. I try to, but yeah. And here sometimes I've understood I can look down on pretty much everyone when I think in terms of intellect, because no matter how smart people might be, even the most competent specialist in any given topic He's just a specialist, namely he doesn't have the full view. That's why I've had the tendency to look down, for instance, on Anglo-Saxon intellectuals. Of course, I'm intelligent enough to know that they are much more competent than I am on an empirical level in whatever field of expertise they have inquired, but I can look down on them because of the very structure of what I call the Anglo-Saxon mind, any limited perspective. And here, the European gods and goddesses, as I call them, they really are apart because they, I'm going to make a good joke, they are apart because they are not apart. They are apart, you are apart because you are not apart. You are the whole. Do you get it? I can make good play on words. Yeah. So, yeah, the specificity of what I call the best people, the best intellectually, in terms of not just intellectually, morally as well, at some moment, maybe all the moments, but the best people, you have a holistic intelligence. Yeah. So, when I think about my relationships with others, either I look upward, I look as equals, or I look downward. And here I will conclude by talking to you, Michael, and to you, Caroline. I can be very arrogant, but I have never looked down on you intellectually. That's why you are the select few, and the few others, Marie, her production, her intellectual production, I would never look down. I mean, really, if I reach the sky and the top, okay, but I have never looked down because it's genuinely mind-blowing. It's amazing. I've just reread a few of her books. It's amazing. It's the formal aspect. It's not very rigorous here in a sense of it's not a scholarly work, but it's amazing. Your work, Caroline, it's amazing. What you produce in your videos, Michael, it's amazing. The book written by Varg, it's amazing. It's not formally very scholarly, it doesn't have to be, but the content is amazing. And in a sense, the European gods and goddesses, I do not look down on you on an intellectual level or on a moral level. Maybe at some moment I will, if I become really brilliant like the sun. But that's why you are so special, because when I really suffer, I sometimes retreat into the intellect, and then I tend to be negative against pretty much everything else. But I've never had the tendency to look down on your. If I have, I'm unconsciously deceiving, but I don't think I have, because given the circumstances, making videos in your car or live streams with PTSD or whatever, it's really amazing. With no formal education for most of the people, Michael, you've had a training in philosophy, but most of the others, they haven't had any formal education in terms of philosophy. It's really amazing. Yeah. 3 hours and 32 minutes. I'll just conclude by saying maybe that's the last time that I can speak normally, peacefully, imagining myself talking to you. That's the first, not the first time, but that I can have an imaginary conversation with people that I imagine will watch my video. Or maybe not, or not at the proper time. What is the proper time? I don't know, but I will conclude by saying I have many problems. Actually, I have all the problems of the world, but one of the psychological problems, here I talk about my personal psychology. I have discovered a world, the world of the mind in 2016 with what I call my awakening. It started in 2013, that was really my cultural awakening, but between 2013 and 2016 I was culturally awakening, and politically I was communist, ecologist, and I still partly am. And in 2016, that was my right-wing political awakening. I have become partly a right-winger, but I have transcended, or tried to, more or less successfully. But I'm not definable in terms of left versus right. But what I call my intellectual awakening in 2016, that's when I really took the red pill and started to get interested in politics at first. But then it has taken me much further away than just politics. Art, religion, philosophy, science in the broader sense, etc., etc. But one of my problems, it's just my problem, but I explain my suffering, because when I suffer, I consciously or unconsciously make others suffer as well. That's why I try to cure my suffering, partly. It's not always possible, but I have never been able to have a conversation about topics which are of interest for me, potentially all topics, but just take an example, spontaneously, I would like to talk about race realism, psychology and IQ, politics, history, religion, art, but in a kind of a peaceful way, to have a peaceful conversation with friends, like the Greek philosophers or the Roman philosophers did with one another, between men. Get the women out of here, send them in the kitchen. You do not belong in the symposium, Caroline. Go in the kitchen with Stella and Scarlett. That's a joke, that's a joke, that's a joke. I'm gonna have problems. But more seriously, yeah, I have been unable to have a conversation with an other who shares my culture. I never thought that I would have a culture. When I left high school at the age of 16 or 17, I was completely ignorant. I never thought I would become a man of culture. But eventually I've discovered that I've acquired a culture, but I've been unable to communicate with any other, partly because of my lack of willingness to have interaction with others on an empirical level. But even if I had chosen to do so, it would take so much time, because the level of culture, I'm not talking about high culture, I'm talking about modern culture, scientific, political, etc., historical even, of the average person in a country like France, even in the Germanic part where I find myself. I'm not blaming the ordinary people, that's not their fault. The system is rigged, the educational system has been dumbed down, there has been manipulation. The people, they have jobs to do to produce wealth. I don't blame them as individuals, but I just explained that the cultural level has declined. I mean, it's not declined because it's just very low, in the sense that it's impossible, or there are very tiny groups maybe, but it would have to go on secret forums just to talk about science, not to make all conspiracies about taking over the world through a ludicrous mythological perspective, etc. No, simply to have a conversation about topics which interest me, namely all topics eventually, but with people who have broadly the same cultural references, and in the sense they have to be broadly of my own generation, because the older people, that's not their fault, but they haven't had access to the internet, they have lived manipulated and trapped by the media. In this sense, I have been unable to encounter an other from broadly the same generation, which broadly shares the same interests, the same cultural references, etc. So I have been accumulating knowledge for 6 years now. I have been exteriorizing knowledge in 2019 and 2022. I have published, at the moment that I record this video, I have published 536 videos. Yeah. And I have been unable to have a conversation. And I would lie if I say that it's not a source of frustration. I would lie if I did not acknowledge that actually it is a source of frustration. But there are worse frustrations I get, but I just explained my psychology. I suffer from many more problems, and this is one of the problems, that I have been unable to talk with others who broadly understand what I talk about, or who can... Here it's not the competitive, let's challenge the gods. No. That comes later, maybe. I'm in a mood to laugh. Enjoy while you can. I will try to. No, but seriously. Just to have a peaceful conversation with another who is like me in a sense. I'm not a stupid racist, but a white male between 25 and 35 who broadly shares the same interest. I haven't been able to. That's my suffering. There are worse sufferings to have, but it's part of my suffering, and it explains part of my recent development. So that's why I talk alone. I exteriorize my thoughts. I don't know who will watch this, when, what will they understand. But I will conclude by saying, okay, it's been almost 4 hours. I will conclude by saying that I wanted to make this video because from now I will go my own way. And I will stop at least as long as I receive no certainty that I can peacefully talk with the people that I intend to talk about. I think I will go on my own path. I will, in the coming, I don't know when this video will be published, but I know that my conscious plan is from now, the 2nd of December. In the coming times I will go my own way, and I will talk the truth as envisioned, is the totality unfolding itself, and I have already made references about your works, Carolyn, Michael, and all the others, Jean, Dr. Deep State, footnotes to Plato, Matthew, etc. But I will not try to consciously scheme, because scheming it's not that it's impossible, but the very fact that I don't know who receives what message when, what do they understand, what part of the process do they get, I don't know, and I've understood a few months ago that trying to anticipate it's counterproductive. That's why that's connected with what I said with the conspiracy, to try to think that there are people many centuries ago who anticipated everything. No. It's retroactive delusion. It's coherent, but it's retroactively projected by us, those who think about the conspiracy, back onto the past. But it doesn't work like that. There are no people who anticipate everything centuries in advance, because it goes way too fast. So I've decided to say, okay, at some moment I will simply speak my truth about my world, which is the world, and in my world the most intelligent, the most competent, the most brilliant, sometimes brilliant to the point of blinding myself by an excess of light, maybe. But they are the people that I've talked about. I have to suffer. I have to make others suffer, consciously or unconsciously. There has to be suffering. Not just suffering, but I have my problems to solve. I cannot, on a singular level, I cannot solve all the problems by myself. What I have consciously attempted to do over the past few weeks is to try to solve as many singular problems as I can, but I cannot just focus on my singular problems. I try to find a balance between taking care of my singular life, not at all costs, but to try just to find balance, while sharing universal thoughts through my videos. But eventually all the layers have to be connected, and at some level, at some moment, the truth here, that's what I call sharing the ID. The ID here, it's the logical process. It means at some moment others will understand what we are on a cosmic level, one might say, what I call the encyclopedic totality. And my IDs will have been, my ID, not my IDs, my ID in a sense here, the ID means to understand that basically there is one reality and each singular individual participates in the totality. That's God becoming conscious of himself in the grandest cosmic perspective, I might say. When others understand this, I don't know when it occurs, but it will spread, and here I will not even try to anticipate. I don't even know who or what I am. Also, yeah, I wanted to say this. I've acted very weirdly because I don't know who or what I am. If you don't know who or what you are, it's very difficult to defend your interest. And here I'm not talking about in a selfish way, because to defend one's own interest means to promote the interest of the people you care about the most, or to the people you care about. But if you don't know who you are, so I will conclude by saying I have a certainty. What is important for me? What I call Europe. That's the most important. Europe here, it doesn't mean the geographical continent. Europe, I envision this as a soul, which is the reflection of all the greatest, most noble feelings, ideas, works of art produced by Europeans. But it's just an aspect of reality. It's not, there are not just good aspects in reality, but what I call Europe, for me, it's the soul of Europe. It's really the best. And of course, it's connected with Europeans, not only the Europeans of Europe, but anthropological Europeans, namely white people. And I just had a moment of clarity a couple of months ago, thanks to following your channel, Michael. I realized that 97% of world achievements in art, science, literature, etc., that's the book by Charles Mann, 97% have been the products of anthropological Europeans, either Europeans of Europe or Europeans which have settled in Northern America or Australia, New Zealand. Europeans, white people. But I am not a white nationalist, because I will not clarify this, hopefully it's clear, but the universal is universal. The Europeans, they are a particular group of people, the most productive in terms of artistic expression, culture, legislation, ideas, ethics of all sorts. They are the most productive, the most creative, but they are a particular group of people. But here I have to use quantitative determination. The overwhelming majority of the greatest ideas produced in the entire history of mankind, they have come from Europeans. But the particular contains in himself the universal. That's the story of our people. Here I talk about Europeans. Europeans are a people who, whatever they do, they produce universality. And even in this age of cultural, moral, civilizational decadence, the overwhelming majority of the people that I have cared about the most, been interested in the most, have been and still are Europeans. I still discover great Europeans, it means anthropological Europeans, every day. I will put the links, maybe Ruby Granger, that's a channel I discovered recently. Apparently she's an American, maybe she's a British person, but she's a typical great European person. She lives in the US, but she's a young girl who is fascinated with studying. She's a romantic aristocrat from the 19th century England, in the modern world. She's kind of an alien, but she's fascinating as well. I discovered another European person, a Russian girl, anthropologically European. She's great as well. And I discover great Europeans on the internet every day, not past figures. I could study the history of Europe, the history of white people, and discover great names that I've never heard of, etc. But I'm talking about modern living people. And in this sense, I prefer Europeans. But the problem with Europeans is that they are in conflict with one another constantly, and I can have racist excesses, but I am not racist in the sense that I can easily be impressed or admire people, whatever their origin is, if they are intelligent, if they have character. That's the ethics of Martin Luther King, not the color of the skin, but the content of the character. Of course, in the sense, I'm not racist. When I'm in a stable mood, I can admire people of all ethnic origin, of all cultures, interesting, good, competent, worthy people. All people are worthy in the eyes of God, but genuinely interesting people I will not pretend, oh, everyone is equally interesting. No, genuinely interesting people, there are genuinely interesting people in all cultures. I really mean this in the sense, I am typically European, I am interested by diversity in the noble sense. An encounter with others of a different culture, that's a spontaneous interest for other civilizations, other peoples, which is a specifically European feature. Historically, psychologically, etc. So, yeah, but it has to be corrected with empiricism. The overwhelming majority of the most interesting people, historically or in the present day and age, in my life, they have been and they still are overwhelmingly European, which means anthropological European. The most interesting person in the modern world, as of now, Mr. Peterson, Zizek, Dawkins, Mr. Elon Musk, the leaders, the CEOs of the big companies, the innovators, the creators, etc. They are still overwhelmingly white, even though white civilization are undergoing or is undergoing decline. The demographics are declining. The most interesting person, they are still overwhelmingly European. Yeah. So in this sense, I love Europe. But Europe is so complex. There is Europe in Germany and in America, and in Canada, and in France, and in England, and in Bulgaria, and in Argentina, and in Chile. There's Europe. There's Europe everywhere. That's the problem, would say the non-European people. I can understand, yeah, but who am I? What do I? What is important? Europe. But all the conflicts, they are within Europe, because at some level these are conflicts within God, and God is German. Thank God! Thank God, God is German. What did you expect? Of course God is German. When people discover the relationship between God and Germany, well, let's preserve the surprise for the good. Yeah, no, but seriously, I will conclude now. It's been very long, but yeah. I love Europe. I mean, European people, but European people, they are so beyond themselves. They transcend themselves constantly, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad, but that's I don't know what to say. In my mind, there is Germany, Europe, and America. Germany is European, Europe is Germanic, America is European and Germanic, so they are interconnected, but eventually maybe they coincide at some moment. But America, I've already talked about it. America, the US, it's a European country in a sense that it has been founded by European peoples of Anglo-Saxon, Germanic, etc. It has European values, but it's beyond Europe. It's for everyone in a sense. Not anyone, but everyone who the principles, etc. But the idea that I've already talked about this, the idea that a particular group of people of a particular ethnical, anthropological origin has to transcend itself and to provide universal values, legislation, modes of production, culture, etc. It's specifically European. That's how I interpret this. In my mind, it's very clear. Europeans are a particular group of people which always aims towards universality, more consistently than any other. That's Europe in all its aspects. And this is what I love the most. because it contains within itself the particularities of Europe, all the singular individuals that I have been attracted to, that I have loved, that I've been interested in, that I'm still interested in, and the universal. There's the singular, the particular, the universal. That's it's not a synthesis. That's a concrete unity, as the boring German scholar of the 19th century would say. I will rest for a few hours. I will not stop working, but I will just take a rest. And I don't know when I publish this video, but I move so fast in a way. I have said what I wanted to say. I will go my own way. I will encounter people on my path, I guess. I cannot talk alone forever. Maybe that's the problem, but as long as there are empirical others, I cannot talk alone. But I've been in a good mood in this video, but I tend to suffer from psychological, ontological crisis sometimes. I've tried to stabilize myself. I've partly succeeded, but I'll conclude by saying I don't know what's going to happen consciously, but Michael and Carolyn, you have been two of the most important persons for me since I discovered you 2018 for Carolyn, 2017 at the end for Michael. You have been two of the most important. I've never had the opportunity to talk to you or very briefly through written word. I don't know what's going to happen, but consciously, I mean. I will go my own way, and that's what I had to share.